Chapter 629. Temptress replied, I'm an old friend of Yu Qianqiu. I heard that he came to Cornucopia, so I came to see him. Please inform him that Yi Kun is looking for him. He naturally knows who I am. If it weren't for Wen Lanfeng, she would have gone in to find him. Shopkeeper Wen's face was solemn. Yu Qianqiu had a close relationship with the Wen family's ancestor. He really didn't see that this seductive sleeping springhouse top courtesan was actually a friend of Yu Qianqiu. Could it be that there was some ambiguous relationship between the two? He didn't dare to neglect and immediately cupped his hands and said, Please wait a moment, I'll go and inform Mr. Yu. Thank you. Temptress respectfully sent him off. Upstairs, Yu Qianqiu was swinging his arm to fool Wen Lanfeng, causing Lu Yanqing to frown incessantly. Wen Lanfeng seemed to be possessed, and even admired him to the extreme. In his heart, he was full of envy that Bai Chongqun had accepted a good disciple. The shopkeeper ran up and saluted them first, and then said to Yu Qianqiu, Mr. Yu, there is a woman named Yi Kun looking for you downstairs. She said that she is your old friend. Do you want to see her? Yu Qianqiu was helpless. This was expected. He knew it would be like this. He sighed and said, Bring her to the backyard first. I'll go down later. After that, he sat on the side in a daze. The shopkeeper took the order and went down. When Lu Yanqing heard Yi Kun, she immediately remembered the charming woman who sang in Sleeping Spring House. Wasn't she called Yi Kun? When Lanfeng saw him in a daze and couldn't help but ask, Who is Yi Kun? It seems that you don't want to see her. It's a long story. Yu Qianqiu sighed. He felt a headache whenever he saw the 100 Charms enchantress. This unclear relationship really made him feel conflicted. The temptress and Yan Yu were led to the backyard. The shopkeeper informed them that Yu Qianqiu was talking to Wen Lanfeng and would come down shortly. He asked them to wait for a moment. After saying that, the shopkeeper did not disturb them and went to busy himself. Yan Yu saw Amano and the other three sitting in the courtyard, so she went over to greet Li Qiuxiang. The temptress looked around and sighed. Back then, she was a dignified palace master, and Yu Qianqiu was just a small disciple who worked as a laborer in Angquangceng, and he was almost killed by her. Now, things were really different from before. His name was known to everyone in the cultivation world, and he was even more famous than himself. Moreover, the people who came and went were all top figures in the cultivation world of China. It was really hard to understand. He had been jumping around outside and causing trouble everywhere. It was a miracle that he had survived until now. But unexpectedly, he climbed higher and higher, climbing to a height that many people could not reach. At this moment, 3 figures landed in the backyard at the same time. It was Nongzhu who brought Zi and Hibiscus. As soon as Nongzhu arrived, people in the yard came over and saluted, Senior Nongzhu. Nongzhu waved her hand casually, indicating that there was no need to be so polite, but when she saw Yan Yu, her expression was not friendly. Yan Yu lowered her head secretly and cursed in her heart. She did not know when she had offended this senior, who always gave her a bad look. Zi accidentally glanced at the temptress and was stunned for a moment. Then she cheered. Ah, Sister Yi, why are you here? Zi? The temptress's eyes also lit up, and the two of them held hands excitedly. Especially Zi, she did not have many friends, and suddenly met one, she was really happy. When Yu Qianqiu, who was upstairs, heard the words, purple dress, he was startled. He immediately tiptoed to the window, and like a thief, he stuck his head out and looked down. It would have been fine if he didn't look, but when he did, his face turned green. Let alone purple dress. Even that girl was fine. In addition to the temptress, there was also Yan Yu. What the hell? Furong was also here. What was Nongzhu doing? Why did she bring her here? Wen Lanfeng and Lu Yanqing looked at each other and found that they could not understand this guy. They looked at his strange behavior. Nongzhu saw that her daughter was so happy, so he forgot about Yan Yu and asked with a smile, Zi, who is this? She made you so happy. Master, this is Sister Yi Kun. She was my best friend when I was in the cultivation world of Huaxia. She helped me a lot. Zi said excitedly. Nongzhu suddenly smiled and nodded to the temptress. In that case, I have to thank you. My disciple doesn't know what to do. Thank you for taking care of him. He wasn't just saying this casually. Since he had helped Ze before, he would remember this favor. Senior, you are welcome. I did not do anything. The temptress said respectfully. Well, Miss Yi, if you need me in the future, you can come to the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea to find me. Maybe I can help you a little. Nongzhu smiled. This could be considered as giving a promise. The temptress was overjoyed and immediately bowed. Thank you, Senior. Thank you. She had heard of Mr. Nongzhu's name. She did not expect to accidentally make friends with a middle-stage divine transformation realm master, which made her overjoyed. Nongzhu suddenly said, "Huh." He stared at the almost transparent clothes of the temptress and asked suspiciously, "You have practiced the jade charm skill? Who is Qiu Mainyang from the cultivation world of Huaxia to you?" The temptress was stunned and immediately replied, "Senior, I have indeed practiced the jade charm skill. Senior Qiu was the wife of the leader of the Caprice Palace more than 1,000 years ago. I found the jade charm skill by accident when I was sorting out the relics of the past. It was left by Senior Qiu. Are you old friends with the ancestors of the Caprice Palace? Time really flies. It has been more than 1,000 years. At that time, my cultivation was only at the middle stage of the crossing calamity stage." Nongzhu sighed with emotion. The charming woman called Qiu Mainyang appeared in her mind. Her cultivation was one level higher than his at that time. They met by chance and did not know each other's background. They did not want to inquire about each other's background. They just fooled around for a period of time because they were attracted to each other. That feeling was really ecstatic. After hanging out with each other for a period of time, they each had their own matters to attend to, and after that, they never saw each other again. Nongzhu suddenly froze and asked weakly, "What did you just say? You said that Qiu Mainyang is the wife of the leader of the Caprice Palace?" "Yes. Senior, don't you know?" The temptress asked. "Qiu Mainyang, good name." Yu Qianqiu, who was upstairs, revealed a cheeky grin and asked Wen Lanfeng, who had also walked to the window to watch, "Senior Wen, have you heard about the romantic history of this Qiu Mainyang and Senior Nongzhu?" Wen Lanfeng replied disapprovingly, "I have never heard of Qiu Mainyang. Nongzhu's romantic history is well known in the cultivation world. Who knows how many women he has hooked up with? With his cultivation talent, if he spent half of his time on women on cultivation, I am afraid he would have been ranked among the top 10 experts. You are the same, spending all your time on Lu Yanqing." Yu Qianqiu secretly smiled, but when he saw the women below, he suddenly stopped smiling. It seemed that he was the same. Haha. Maybe it has been too long and I have forgotten. Nongzhu laughed. He was sweating in his heart. The woman he hooked up with was the wife of the leader of the Caprice Palace? At that time, although his cultivation talent was good, he was just a rogue cultivator in the middle stage of crossing calamity. At that time, the Caprice Palace was already a big force, but he dared to make a cuckold of the leader of the Caprice Palace. If he was found out, he would die without a whole body. That was dangerous, too dangerous. Nongzhu rejoiced and asked subconsciously, "How is she now?" After asking, he immediately realized that he had asked the wrong question. Since Qiu Mainyang said that it was a relic, she was naturally dead. Moreover, if Qiu Mainyang was still alive now, her cultivation must have reached the deification stage. If her cultivation had reached the deification stage, there was no reason that he did not know. Although his question was nonsense, the temptress still answered honestly, "Senior Qiu passed away 1,000 years ago." This sentence made Nongzhu sigh. Looking back on the past, she could not count how many women she had slept with, but those who were still alive could be counted on one hand. "Qiu Mainyang, have a safe journey." Nongzhu sighed to the sky. The fate of life was so magical. Qiu Mainyang's cultivation was higher than his, and now he did not know how many times she had reincarnated. But he was still alive after 1,000 years. Maybe this was the meaning of cultivation. To live. The temptress also suspected the relationship between him and Qiu Mainyang. But Qiu Mainyang was the ancestor of the sect after all. She did not dare to think deeply about it. But she was more or less glad. She did not expect that the ancestor of the sect had a relationship with the famous Mr. Nongzhu. If the sect encountered any trouble, it would be easier for her to ask for help. This was also the benefit of the ancestor. Furong, come here." Ze waved to Furong and called her over. She pointed to the temptress and said,
This is Sister Yi, whom I often mention to you.
She is also very familiar with Yu Qianqiu. You can also call her Sister Yi. Sister Yi, Furong said obediently. Zi pointed at her and introduced her to the temptress. This is Furong, Yu Qianqiu's woman. Yu Qianqiu, who was upstairs, stared at the lively Zi and rolled his eyes. Yu Qianqiu's woman?
The temptress was startled, then smiled and said, Hello, Sister Furong.
Yan Yu looked around.
She looked at the temptress and then at Furong.
She kept thinking about which woman looked more like Yu Qianqiu's woman. She did not know that she was also one of them. If she knew, how would she feel? Sister Yi, aren't you in the Chinese cultivation world? Why are you here? Zi asked curiously.
The temptress pointed to the building and said with a smile, I happened to come to the cornucopia.
I heard that Yu Qianqiu is here, so I came to see. He is here? Zi and Furong asked almost at the same time.
The temptress was surprised and said, You don't know.
Zi and Furong looked at Nongzhu at the same time.
The former asked suspiciously, Master, is Yu Qianqiu really here?
Her tone was a little sad.
Nongzhu coughed guiltily and said, How would I know?
Ever since he knew that Yu Qianqiu was in the Sleeping Spring building, he was already furious. He did not want the two girls to meet Yu Qianqiu. Why would he tell them that Yu Qianqiu was here? If he was not worried that something might happen, he would not have brought the two girls here. Chapter 630. Wan Lanfeng, who was upstairs, was confused. Nongzhu knew that Yu Qianqiu was here. Why did she say she didn't know? She tilted her head and looked at Yu Qianqiu for help. Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly. Since she knew he was here, there was no point in delaying, so he left through the window. Zi didn't get a satisfactory answer. She didn't want to interrogate her master in front of so many people, so she said to Furong, Let's go up and look for him. No need. Yu Qianqiu walked down the stairs with a smile. Zi shouted excitedly, Big liar! As a result, Yu Qianqiu's face darkened. How could she call him a big liar in front of so many people? How could he put his face? Fortunately, Furong was gentle and lovely. She ran to hold his arm and immediately restored a smile on his face. He held Furong's shoulders and took a good look. He smiled faintly and said, Are you all right over there?
Furong nodded with a bright face and said, Good.
That's good. I'll talk to you later. Yu Qianqiu held her hand and let go. Furong nodded and stood aside obediently. It was this gentle and harmonious scene that made many people envious. Lu Yanqing didn't know when she had also walked to the window and was silently watching below. Wan Lanfeng tilted his head and looked. Yu Qianqiu looked at the temptress of 100 charms. When he was about to walk over, Zi stopped him and asked excitedly, Big liar, when did you come? Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and asked word by word, Who's the big liar? Please pay attention to the way you address me. If it weren't for Nongzhu's covetous eyes, he would have turned hostile on the spot. Zi didn't care and wasn't angry. She smiled and asked, Yu Qianqiu, how much money did you cheat while I was away? Remember to treat me later. Nongzhu looked at her daughter and was speechless. She was indeed a little rude. Yu Qianqiu wished that he could seal her mouth. Every time they met, she would not say anything nice. Taking a deep breath, he squeezed out a smile and said, You're getting married soon. I forgot to congratulate you. Have you received the congratulatory gift that I asked your master to bring for you? Marry? Zi opened her mouth wide and was stunned. Nongzhu wished she could cover Yu Qianqiu's mouth with her own. Zi was going to get married? Why hadn't Nongzhu mentioned it before? Wan Lanfeng and Lu Yanqing looked at each other, then they disappeared from the window and suddenly appeared in the courtyard, causing a group of people to salute them. Nongzhu, what do you mean? Wan Lanfeng asked somewhat unhappily. Ziyi's marriage is such a big matter. Why have I never heard you mention it? Could it be that you look down on me, Wan Lanfeng? Lu Yanqing also said unhappily. Nongzhu, we watched Ziyi grow up. Don't tell me we don't even have the qualifications to drink a cup of wedding wine? Who said I'm getting married? Why didn't I know? Ziyi said blankly. Nongzhu could not explain, so she simply put the blame on Yu Qianqiu and said, Don't listen to this boy's nonsense. He doesn't speak the truth. Everyone's eyes were focused on Yu Qianqiu again.
They were very suspicious, as if they were doubting his honesty. Yu Qianzhou's personality was that of someone who would twist words and force logic even if he didn't suffer a loss.
How could he stand being wronged like this?
F***ck, he cussed on the spot.
Who's talking nonsense?
You were clearly the one who told me that.
Oh!
Yu Qianzhou suddenly revealed an expression of sudden realization.
I understand now.
You must have come up with a reason for Ziyi's marriage in order to swindle my treasured sword.
I was wondering why I didn't hear anything before.
Then he pointed to Nongzhu and said to Ziyi, Ziyi, look carefully. Your master is the real liar.
Shut up.
Nongzhu was embarrassed into anger and said, Who cheated you of your sword?
You're ruthless. I can't explain it to you.
Yu Qianzhou stretched out his hand and said coldly, Give me back my sword.
Don't tell me you didn't take it. Who took your sword?
Nongzhu shouted angrily. The two of them quarreled directly and both of them argued. The people present did not know who was telling the truth and who was lying. Those who did not know that Yu Qianzhou's master was by Changchun admired Yu Qianzhou's courage. He dared to contradict Nongzhu, who was in the spirit-severing stage. Boy, if you keep talking, believe it or not, I will kill you. Nongzhu directly began to threaten.
Kill me? I'm afraid it won't be that easy.
Yu Qianzhou rolled up his sleeves directly as if he was going to fight. Wen Lanfeng could not stand it anymore and immediately shouted, Shut up, all of you.
Stop arguing. Yu Qianzhou, is this the sword you were talking about?
Ziyi held an ancient sword in her hand and shook it. Wen Lanfeng glanced at it casually and his pupils suddenly shrank. Lu Yanqing's eyes were also looking at the sword through the green gauze.
Yes, it's this one. Give it back to me.
Yu Qianzhou reached out to grab it. Ziyi pouted and threw it directly back into her storage bag. Then a black light flashed in her hand and a purple-black bamboo stick appeared. She shouted, Hit! Without warning, she directly hit Yu Qianzhou's head. When she raised the bamboo rod, Yu Qianzhou seemed to have a telepathic connection and guessed where she was going to strike. With a whoosh, he dodged to the side and roared, You're crazy! Ziyi's stick missed Yu Qianzhou's body and she was slightly stunned. Her cultivation was not a little higher than Yu Qianzhou's. In addition, it was a close-range sneak attack. It was reasonable to say that it was difficult for him to dodge with his speed. Unexpectedly, he seemed to be able to predict it and actually dodged in advance, anticipating the enemy's first move. Wen Lanfeng, Lu Yanqing, and Nongzhu looked at each other and were somewhat surprised. They all saw that Yu Qianzhou did not dodge with speed, but in advance as if he had predicted it. It should be known that in a battle, being able to predict the enemy's first move was a great advantage. It was often a matter of life and death. This was a kind of sharp intuition given by God, or precious experience accumulated after a long period of fighting. Not everyone could have this kind of intuition. And some people, even if they fought for a lifetime, could not understand a thing or two in this aspect. To be exact, people who had this kind of magical intuition could be described as people who were blessed by God. Even if the three of them had reached the soul formation stage, it was difficult to use this intuition in a fight. Maybe they could occasionally see it, but they would doubt it and dare not follow their intuition unless they had to. After all, if they made a wrong step in a fight, the consequences would be unimaginable. Maybe it was a coincidence. The three of them secretly said in their hearts, Fight! Ziyi's attack missed, and she was not satisfied. She flashed and rushed to hit again with the stick. Although she did not see anything on the surface, she was stimulated by Yu Qianzhou's words. When her master gave her the sword, he said that it was a gift from Yu Qianzhou, which made her very happy. Who knew that when she met Yu Qianzhou, he wanted to take back the sword. She was very unhappy to take back the thing that was given to her, so she had to hit Yu Qianzhou to vent her anger. F***ck. Before Ziyi could move, Yu Qianzhou let out a ghastly cry and once again dodged to the side in advance. Ziyi immediately pounced on empty air. He dodged in advance again. Wen Lanfeng and the other two looked at each other in surprise. Ziyi missed. Before her feet touched the ground, she dodged to the side and chased after Yu Qianzhou. She was hurt by this big liar. How could she be satisfied if she did not hit him with the stick? However, Yu Qianzhou seemed to have eyes in the back of his head. He suddenly twisted his body and moved to the side. Ziyi's bamboo stick brushed past his back and missed.
Even Yu Qianqiu himself didn't know why he suddenly did this. In any case, his body followed his heart's desire, and his body followed a flash of thought. When he really heard the sound of dodging, he rejoiced. This girl was stubborn and did not know how to control her strength. If she really hit him, it would be embarrassing. At first, Furong thought that the two of them were joking. However, when she saw Ze continuously chasing after Yu Qianqiu, it did not seem like a joke. Furong immediately asked anxiously, Ze, why are you hitting him? Hit. A purplish-black light left Ziyi's hand and shot towards Yu Qianqiu with a whistling sound. The more Ziyi could not hit him, the angrier she became. She actually used her sword to control the bamboo stick to chase after him. She was fast, but Yu Qianqiu's reaction was not slow. He did not even turn his head and bent down. A gust of wind swept over his head. However, before he could raise his head, he subconsciously dodged to the side and the bamboo stick that shot back was dodged again. A purplish-black shadow shuttled around the courtyard, forcing Yu Qianqiu to jump up and down, dodge left and right, and jump back and forth. He did not even have the chance to speak. However, the shadow could not touch him. The purplish-black shadow always brushed past him. One Lan Feng and the other two were dumbfounded. They did not feel that Yu Qianqiu was embarrassed at all. Instead, it was as if they had seen something incredible. Yu Qianqiu did not dodge with speed. He dodged in advance every time based on his intuition. Even if the bamboo stick suddenly changed direction, he could still react in advance. It was incredible that he could use intuition to this extent. Unfortunately, when Bai Chongqun taught Yu Qianqiu the animal play, Nongzhu was not there. If he was there and heard Bai Chongqun's words, he would not be so surprised. When Bai Chongqun taught Yu Qianqiu the animal play, he said that this incantation was not very powerful. The secret of mastering it was reflected in the 4 words, foresight. Once one was proficient in it, it would benefit him for the rest of his life. Ze busied herself for a long time, and her face was filled with astonishment. She suddenly put away her bamboo stick and stared at Yu Qianqiu, as if remembering something. When Bai Chongqun had said those words, she had been there, and now she remembered. You're so stubborn. Is there something wrong with your brain? Yu Qianqiu finally had time to speak. He rolled up his sleeves and said fiercely, I am the strongest master below the deification stage, and I am not weak. You forced me to do this, so don't blame me for being rude. His face was ferocious like a hungry wolf about to eat a lamb. He was ready to fight back. Have you mastered the animal play? Ze pointed at him and asked in a daze. Why do you care what I have mastered? Animal play? Yu Qianqiu shouted halfway and then stopped. His face froze, and he suddenly recalled the scene just now. It seemed that he had been dodging based on intuition. Chapter 631. Recalling the process of dodging earlier, he recalled what Bai Chongqun had said when he taught him the animal moves. When he saw the animal world in the Jade Archive, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After listening to Bai Chongqun's words, he decided to give it a try. Although he was just giving it a try, he still put in a lot of effort because he had full trust in Bai Chongqun. Whenever he was free, he would put his heart and soul into it. He couldn't say that he was very proficient, but he was pretty much done. To be honest, after practicing for so long, he really didn't find any benefits. However, he found that the more he practiced, the more his movements resembled those of the animals in the mountains. He didn't dare to show it in front of others as it was too embarrassing. However, some things were always like this. The effort he put in would not go to waste. Yu Qianqiu stood there and smiled foolishly. He was pleasantly surprised. Animal moves? Nongzhu's eyes lit up. She raised an eyebrow and rubbed her chin. Her expression was unpredictable. When Lan Feng took a deep look at Yu Qianqiu, then asked Nongzhu, was it he who taught you the magic incantation? When she said the word he, she slightly paused. Lu Yanqing's eyes flashed as she stared at Nongzhu. Nongzhu nodded with a sinister smile. Yu Qianqiu, am I right? Ze asked expectantly. She was also practicing the animal play, but her movements were still bumpy. She couldn't even be said to be smooth. One could imagine how depressed she was. Little did she know that she had grown up in the purple bamboo forest in the southern sea and rarely left the island.
She had never seen many of the animals in the animal moves, and she didn't even have any impression of some of the common poultry. How could she master it just by relying on the pictures in the Jade Archive? Naturally, the effort was not worth the reward. Yu Qianqiu slowly turned his head and snorted. I don't know. The pleading expression on Ziyi's face froze. She said angrily, let me try again. Her figure flashed, and a series of shadows appeared in the courtyard. It was a dazzling sight. All of them rushed towards Yu Qianqiu, making it hard to tell which was real and which was fake. F***CK. You're still coming. Yu Qianqiu let out a strange cry and began to jump around again. Furong, who was at the side, said anxiously, Ziyi, don't hit him anymore. However, he didn't listen to her advice at all. Amano and the others looked at each other. Knowing that they were all acquaintances and wouldn't kill anyone, they didn't bother. Form displacement transposition. Wan Lanfeng and Lu Yanqing looked at each other and smiled. This was Nongzhu's signature incantation. The allure demonic lady looked at Ziyi's familiar movement technique with suspicion. She wondered why it was so similar to the Great Illusion technique. However, there was still a difference between the two. As soon as Ziyi used the shape displacement transposition, Nongzhu subconsciously looked at the Enchantress of 100 Charms. In fact, this technique was created by him after he saw Qiu Mainyang use the Phantom Great technique in the past. However, with his extraordinary talent, his self-created transfiguration transposition was even sharper than Phantom Shadow. The biggest use of Phantom Shadow was to confuse people's eyes and ears. The shape displacement transposition created by Nongzhu could not only confuse people's eyes and ears, but it was also good at speed. It was also supported by attack. The fast and elusive way of attack was hard to guard against. It was quite powerful. The higher one's cultivation, the more effective it was. However, what surprised Wan Lanfeng and the others was that Yu Qianqiu, who had been a little flustered in the beginning, now seemed a little elegant when he moved and dodged, giving off a transcendent feeling of walking on water. They were immediately shocked when they observed carefully. They saw that Yu Qianqiu actually closed his eyes with a faint smile on his face. No matter how many phantoms she created, he was free to move freely. The muscles on Nongzhu's face twitched. It was the first time in his life that someone could deal with his shape displacement transposition with his eyes closed. In fact, Yu Qianqiu had no choice. The phantoms that Ziyi created all over the courtyard always conflicted with his vision and intuition. He clearly felt that the opponent was attacking him from behind, but he also saw someone was attacking in front of him. The feeling of being in a dilemma was too painful, and he was almost in danger again and again. Should he see it with his own eyes, or follow his intuition? After a period of embarrassment, he firmly believed in the animal tricks taught by Changchun. In order not to let his vision interfere with his judgment, he simply closed his eyes. In an instant, the whole world was far away from him. The function of shape displacement transposition to confuse people's eyes and ears had no effect on him. He abandoned vision and hearing and only followed his intuition. In an instant, he entered a very strange state. He felt like an eagle soaring in the wind. After spotting his prey, he could immediately judge the prey's escape route. With a preemptive dive, he could accurately make the prey fall into his claws. He felt like a fish in the water. No matter how fast the hunter's attack was, as long as there was a little fluctuation in the water, he could quickly catch it, quickly avoid the attack and escape. The more confident he was, the calmer he was. His movements were more elegant and free, like a rabbit rising and a cuckoo falling naturally. It had to be said that the cultivation of the Tribulation stage provided him with a lot of convenience, giving him many abilities that ordinary people could not avoid. The more Ziyi fought, the more impatient she became. She increased her speed to the extreme, but she always felt that she was just a little bit away from her opponent. She was on the verge of breaking down. In the eyes of the audience, it seemed that Ziyi deliberately let Yu Qianqiu go. She always attacked after Yu Qianqiu dodged, and she always missed by a little bit. The two of them seemed to be playing around. In fact, this was already the limit of Yu Qianqiu's dodging. If he encountered an expert in the soul formation stage, with the attack speed of the soul formation stage, it would be difficult for him to dodge the opponent's attack, even if he could predict the opponent's attack first. After all, the difference in cultivation was too great. In terms of speed, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. It was difficult to make up for this with techniques. However, for those below the soul formation stage, Ze at the end of the tribulation stage was an example. When Lanfeng and the other two were shocked. This guy actually dodged using his intuition from the beginning to the end. This was too exaggerated. Maybe it was nothing now, but when his cultivation reached the soul formation stage, it would be incredible. It should be known that most of the time, soul formation stage cultivators fought with their strength. The probability of them fighting in close combat was very high. Once they fought face to face, they could predict the opponent's attack first and support it with attacks. It was a very scary thing. Dodging is so boring. I'm not fighting anymore, Ze shouted impatiently. The shadow surrounding everyone gradually disappeared. Ze looked angrily at Yu Qianqiu, who also stopped. Why are you not fighting anymore? Yu Qianqiu opened his eyes and waved excitedly. Come, let's play for a while more. He was addicted to playing. This feeling was too wonderful. It was a little uncomfortable to stop playing when he was having fun. Ze stared at him and blinked her big eyes. She put away the rod in her hand and ran over with a smile. How do you practice? Teach me again. When Yu Qianqiu heard this, his face immediately darkened. He lost all interest. When he was on Obedient Island, it was not like he did not teach her. It was torture. She was asked to imitate the form of a chicken. She looked at the picture in the Jade Archive, spread her arms and flew like a bird. Yu Qianqiu was so shocked that he took a few steps back. He was speechless. In the end, he asked her to change to something else. In the end, Yu Qianqiu wanted to slap himself. It was his fault for asking for it. This woman was an idiot in some aspects. He was fooled by an idiot. What else could he do but ask for a slap? Hence, he cursed angrily and quickly ran away. If I teach you again, I'll change my surname to Cho. Damn it! Yu Qianqiu glanced at Nongzhu, who was staring at him. He coughed and said, I don't have time now. We'll talk about it later. He stretched out his hand and said, Give me back my sword. Since you gave it to me, it's mine. I'm not giving it back. Ze rejected him decisively. Yu Qianqiu opened his mouth, but decided not to say anything. It was his bad luck to run into this father and daughter pair. He couldn't get his sword back. He turned around and walked towards the temptress. He asked with a smile, Why are you here? I'm here to broaden my horizons. I heard that you were here, so I came to look for you. With so many people around, the temptress couldn't say much. She could only say it this way. She giggled and said, I'm not familiar with this place. I'll follow you from now on. Yu Qianqiu smiled knowingly. The two of them started asking each other some irrelevant questions. Yan Yu, who was beside the temptress, looked at Yu Qianqiu, who was looking straight ahead. Suddenly, her nose twitched. She smelled an unforgettable body odor. His eyes abruptly widened as he sized up Yu Qianqiu's body. Then, he looked at Tianye's group of four. His complexion turned deathly pale as he stared at Yu Qianqiu. Others might not be able to tell, but how could she not recognize the body odor of the first man she had a skin-to-skin contact with? It was exactly the same as Yu Qianqiu in front of her. This ability to distinguish had nothing to do with one's cultivation. No matter how high one's cultivation was, one might not be able to tell. As long as she really cared about him, it would be hard for her to mistake him. This was a gift given to women. Perhaps she would forget it after a long time. However, she hadn't been separated from him for long. She hugged the pillow in the room and sniffed it. There was still his body odor. In addition, the two of them were similar. Tian Yi and the other three people who followed Niu Yud were also present. Moreover, she knew that Niu Yud had changed his appearance. The Niu Yud she saw was not his original face. With so many coincidences, it was hard for her to mistake him. She guessed who Yu Qianqiu was in an instant. However, Yu Qianqiu did not even look at her. That kind of indifference at such a close distance made her feel like her heart was being torn apart. The temptress inadvertently noticed Yan Yu's reaction. She saw her body tremble slightly and her face pale as she stared at Yu Qianqiu. She could not help but be stunned. Yan Yu, what's wrong? Yu Qianqiu looked at her. His expression froze. He thought to himself, oh no. Yan Yu looked miserable, but she forced a smile and shook her head. It's nothing. I remembered that I have something to do in the building. I'll go back first. She bowed to Wen Lanfeng and the others. Then, she quickly left. Everyone present could see that something was wrong. Nongzhu, who knew that Niu Yud was Yu Qianchou, snorted coldly at Yu Qianchou. After Lu Yanqing watched Yan Yu leave, she also turned to look at Yu Qianchou. She sighed slightly behind the green veil. Chapter 632. The atmosphere suddenly became a little heavy. Although Wen Lanfeng did not know what happened, she knew that no one wanted to say anything. So she called the manager of the shop and arranged the rooms for everyone. Hibiscus naturally lived with Yu Qianchou. After all, their identities had been made public, so there was nothing to hide. After returning to the room, Yu Qianchou still looked a little strange. Hibiscus grabbed his arm and asked weakly, "What's wrong with you? Are you unhappy that I came here without telling you? Then I'll ask Senior Nongzhu to take me back." Yu Qianchou was stunned. He turned to look at her and suddenly smiled. He said, "What nonsense are you talking about? I'm not unhappy. I'm just thinking that the cornucopia is very lively. If I take Hibiscus out for a walk, I don't know if Hibiscus will be happy." "I'll be happy." Hibiscus suddenly became energetic. She held Yu Qianchou's arm and complained, "When Zi and I came here, Senior Nongzhu told us not to run around. We saw that it was very lively down there from the God of Wealth Peak. I've wanted to see it for a long time. Will you take me there now?" Although she spoke in a questioning tone, her face was filled with hope. Yu Qianchou did not have the heart to refuse her. He immediately took her hand and said with a smile, "Let's go. I'll take you there right now." Furong's face was full of joy as she followed him out. Just as the two of them walked into the courtyard, they heard someone shouting from upstairs, "Where are you going?" The two of them raised their heads and saw Zi poking her head out of the window. Hibiscus smiled brightly and said, "Let's go outside and have a look." "Ah!" Zi let out a scream and jumped down from the window without saying anything. She grabbed Hibiscus's arm and complained, "Hibiscus, why didn't you call me when you went out to play?" Then she turned to stare at Yu Qianchou and said, "I'll go too." Yu Qianchou just wanted to refuse and ask her to go back, but he saw Hibiscus's eyes showed that she was expecting him to agree. Yu Qianchou immediately lost his temper and did not say anything to show that he agreed. Zi cheered, then pulled Hibiscus along and walked out. Yu Qianchou immediately felt his scalp tingle. A woman shopping alone was not something an ordinary man could handle. Two women shopping together, it was impossible not to be mentally prepared. Yu Qianchou took a deep breath, patted his chest, and followed behind them. Nongzhu looked down from the window upstairs and shook her head speechlessly. Beside her, Wen Lanfeng asked thoughtfully, "Nongzhu, what's going on with the marriage in purple?" He would never admit to this even if he was beaten to death. Nongzhu shook her head and said, "That boy is talking nonsense. There's no such thing." As soon as Yu Qianchou came out of the one family's merchant shop, he immediately attracted many people's attention. Yu Qianchou glanced around coldly, but the two women didn't care so much. They looked around excitedly, their eyes sparkling. Starting from the shop next to the one family's merchant shop, they did not let go of anything. They excitedly ran in, hand in hand. Yu Qianchou was speechless. He could only follow them in, and he had to maintain a gentleman's demeanor while watching them pick things. After a while, the two women piled up a lot of colorful things on the counter. Yu Qianchou leaned on the side of the counter, trying to distinguish what the two were selling. Suddenly, he heard Zi banging the counter and saying, "It's almost done. How much?" The shopkeeper pulled out an abacus and after some calculations, he smiled and said, "Since the two of you have sold a lot, I'll give you a discount. I won't count the small change. Just pay 1,800,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Is that okay?" Yu Qianchou fiddled with the things on the counter and frowned. "What are these things? Are they worth 1.8 million upper-grade spirit stones?" When Furong heard the price, she was shocked. She had never spent so many spirit stones before, and she had never even seen it before. Ever since she left Fuxian Island with Yu Qianchou, she had bought some things wantonly in Deyang City, but they were all in gold and silver. When she suddenly heard 1.8 million upper-grade spirit stones, she immediately pulled Zi and said, "It's too expensive. Let's not buy it. He has money." Zi pointed at Yu Qianchou. Then, she took Furong's storage bag and put all the things in front of her into it. Then she took her own pile. She pulled Furong and left. Yu Qianqiu paid the bill speechlessly, and the shopkeeper sent them out with a smile. When he reached the end of the street, he realized that the two women were nowhere to be seen. He tried to go to the shop next door, and he found that the two women were indeed picking things inside. He smiled and walked in with a toothache. The prosperity of cornucopia was extremely extravagant. There were all kinds of dazzling items for you to choose from. Of course, the prerequisite was that you had money. For Yu Qianqiu, there was no need to buy many things. However, as long as the two women liked and looked beautiful, they would buy them all regardless of whether they were useful or not. Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu did not lack money at all. However, he still felt the pinch from spending money. It was not that he felt the pinch from spending money, but some things were useless to him. It was a complete waste of spirit stones. He gritted his teeth for half a day and swept through the entire cornucopia. Every shop was the happiest when they met such customers. When the two women felt embarrassed about spending money, they bought more than 10 storage bags. Only then did the three of them return to one clan's shop. When the two women returned, they immediately went into the room to check their spoils of war. Yu Qianqiu calmly asked Mo Xiaojun to go out with him. As soon as they reached the yard, a head poked out of the window on the top floor and shouted, "Yu Qianqiu, come up for a moment." It was Nongzhu. Yu Qianqiu asked Mo Xiaojun to wait for a moment and directly jumped in through the window. Seeing that Wen Lanfeng and the other two were there, he asked Nongzhu after saluting, "What's the matter?" Nongzhu put her hands behind her back and said expressionlessly, "You and Niu Yud are old acquaintances. Help me contact him. I have something to ask him." Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He did not know what Nongzhu was doing. He asked suspiciously, "Why are you looking for him?" Nongzhu pointed to Wen Lanfeng and Lu Yanqing and said, "Well, they also want a batch of limit-breaking pills and 7 treasures pills. They are all old friends. I must help them." Yu Qianqiu was speechless. Since they are old friends, don't hurt them. But now is not the time to tell them the secret of limit-breaking pills. He pondered for a moment and said, "This is not a big problem. After a period of time, I will personally send it to you two seniors. I still have something to do now." Wan Lanfeng smiled and waved his hand. "Since it is not a big problem, it doesn't matter if it is a little late. If you have something to do, go ahead." Lu Yanqing did not say anything and stood quietly on the side. Unexpectedly, Nongzhu snorted coldly and said, "Come on, what can you do? It is nothing more than stealing chickens and dogs. Solve this matter first." "I am stealing chickens and dogs?" When Yu Qianqiu heard this, he became furious. He raised his neck and roared, "Your disciple Ze spent more than 800 million high-grade spirit stones in half a day. I'm busy trying to earn back the money I spent. Don't you think I'm busy? If you give me 800 million upper-level spiritual stones now, I will immediately solve the matter you mentioned." 800 million upper-level spiritual stones. The room immediately quieted down. They were all shocked by such a large number. Nongzhu then asked weakly, "Z spent so much money in half a day? Is it possible?" Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, "I also hope it is impossible, but your disciple can't wait to put the whole cornucopia into her storage bag. 800 million is too little. If you don't believe me, you can go and have a look now. I will leave first." Then he directly ran out of the window. The three people looked at each other. After a long time, Nongzhu turned around and said, "I will go down to see what Z has done. She can spend 800 million. Wan Lanfeng and Lu Yanqing looked at each other and followed. They also wanted to see it. When the three people came to Z's room, they saw all kinds of things in the room. Z and Hibiscus were chattering and laughing in the pile of things, like two thieves dividing the spoils. Seeing the three people coming, the two women casually threw away the things in their hands and saluted. The three people were completely speechless when they saw the messy things in the room. There was a big clean and transparent bottle at Nongzhu's feet. She picked it up and looked at it. With the experience of the three people, they knew what the bottle was at a glance. It was something used to pretend to be a dead body and extract the corpse poison. It was used by the more obscure alchemists to refine pills. Nongzhu held the bottle and asked Z, "You bought this?" Z nodded. Nongzhu asked again, "Why did you buy this?" Z said bluntly, "It looks good." Nongzhu coughed and asked, "How much did you spend this time?" Z thought for a moment and looked at Hibiscus. "The money we spent together should be less than 2 billion upper-level spiritual stones." 2 billion upper-level spiritual stones? Nongzhu was shocked. She looked at the things in the room and said in disbelief, "These things are worth 2 billion upper-level spiritual stones?" Also, Z moved away and pointed at the dozens of storage bags on the table behind her. "The room is a little small. There are not enough things in one storage bag. I haven't taken out the other things." Nongzhu and the other two people were speechless when they looked at the dozens of bulging storage bags. Now they really believed that they had spent so much money. Z looked at the three people who were silent and asked curiously, "Master, what do you want from me?" "Nothing, you can continue." Nongzhu waved her hand and glanced at the various things in the room. She turned around and left with cold sweat on her forehead. When the three people left, the two women continued to talk about the spoils of war. When the three people returned to the top floor, Lu Yan, who had been silent, sighed and said, "It seems that Yu Qianchou said that Z spent 800 million upper-level spiritual stones. He didn't count Hibiscus in it. 800 million upper-level spiritual stones spent in half a day. Oh my god. She went shopping and spent 100 years of our Wen family savings." Wen Lanfeng patted Nongzhu's shoulder and said, "If Z wants to find someone, she must find a very rich family. Our Wen family's financial resources are definitely not enough. I think only Yin Baikong's financial resources are worthy of her. But I think Yin Baikong will also retreat when he sees her. Don't make sarcastic remarks here. Ze only did it once in a while." Nongzhu rolled her eyes and snorted, "That kid is rich. Spending some of his money is giving him face." Wen Lanfeng laughed and said, "But I see that Yu Qianchou's face is dark. It seems that he is very unwilling to give face." Man who turned his head around and saw Yu Qianchou looking around for a while before leaving Wen Clan's shop with another person. Mo Xiaojun followed behind Yu Qianchou. He didn't know what he was going to do, but since Niu Yud told them to listen to him, they didn't dare to have any objections. Moreover, Yu Qianchou's background wasn't simple either, so it wasn't too bad for them. What they saw in the Wen family's shop shocked the four of them. Obviously, their relationship with Wen Lanfeng and the others wasn't ordinary. Yu Qianchou didn't stop all the way. He wasn't interested in the dazzling array of goods on the street at all. After accompanying Furong and Ze for half a day, he spent more than 1 billion yuan. Now he didn't even want to look at the shops on the street. One look would bring back painful memories. It was really painful, so he might as well not see it and not be annoyed. In fact, money was a small matter. It wasn't like it was robbed by others. What else could he say when his woman spent it? Although Ze wasn't his woman, they were all on the same side. After spending it, he could earn it back. If he couldn't earn it back, it was because he was useless. He still had this bit of magnanimity. However, what really annoyed him was Yan Yu. Yan Yu's miserable appearance when she left had been lingering in his mind. They walked to a fork in the street and turned straight out. The two of them came to the periphery of cornucopia. There were no shops in the area, only grids made of lime powder. Each grid was about 2 square meters, and there was a stall in each of them. Looking around, it seemed to be even more lively than the central area of cornucopia. There were people lingering in various stalls everywhere. There were probably many people who wanted to find treasures here. "Sir, are you also here to find treasures?" Mo Xiaojun followed behind him and asked. "I don't have that kind of taste." Yu Qianchou looked around and said, "I'm here to set up a stall. I have to earn back the money I spent today." Mo Xiaojun was stunned. The number one expert below the demigod stage actually wanted to set up a stall. Wasn't that too degrading? He looked behind him and kindly reminded, "Sir, there are many eyes behind you. They seem to be following you. Pretend I didn't see them. Let them follow me. What can they do to me? I still have to rely on them to advertise later. I guarantee my business will be booming." Yu Qianchou stopped and looked into the distance. He rubbed his chin and said, "Why are there no more stalls?" Mo Xiaojun heard him and looked around. Coincidentally, he saw an empty space not far to the left. He pointed and said, "Sir, there's one there. I'll go rent it for you." Yu Qianchou glanced at it and waved his hand. "Stop.
It's too expensive here. The rent for a day is 10 high-grade spirit stones. Come, let's go to the edge. The rent there is only 1 high-grade spirit stone a day. There were 2 people who were pretending to follow them. They almost fainted when they heard that. They couldn't help but complain to Yu Qianqiu. They thought, "We followed you around the treasure bowl today. You're so extravagant. The spirit stones you throw out can crush a cultivator to death. Now, even 10 high-grade spirit stones are expensive? Who are you trying to fool? Did he notice us? It's okay. I still have some spirit stones. I'll rent the stall for you." Mo Xiaojun said kindly. Niu Yud gave the 4 of them a lot of money. "No need. I have money. But I can't spend it recklessly." Yu Qianqiu sighed. "The women in my family are already extravagant. If I spend more, I'll be a prodigal. I have no choice. I can only save it and let her squander it. I can't let her suffer even if I have to suffer. Besides, our goods are good. We don't have to worry about not being able to sell them. It doesn't matter if the stall is a little bad." Mo Xiaojun quickly shut up. This master was a man with his own ideas. He didn't need him to make decisions for him. The 2 of them walked to the edge of the treasure bowl and strolled around. In the end, they found that the expensive areas were still empty. But the stalls here were all occupied. It seemed that the majority of the poor were still poor. There were many people who wanted to save money. Actually, Yu Qianqiu's position was quite conspicuous. Whether it was a buyer or a seller, they were all quietly sizing him up. After all, he was the famous Yu Qianqiu. Someone didn't understand and quietly asked the person next to him who he was. The person next to him turned around and made a butcher's gesture at him. He said softly, "Butcher." The latter opened his mouth and didn't dare to say anything else. He used his eyes to observe carefully. Yu Qianqiu pinched his chin and looked around. Was he looking for someone to rent with? Or was he looking for someone he didn't like to chase away? "Senior, do you want to buy something?" Someone suddenly spoke behind him. Although he didn't know if he was called, he still looked back and saw a familiar person nodding and bowing to him. Yu Qianqiu turned around and squinted his eyes to stare at him. This person. He was familiar. But he wasn't familiar either. He was the itinerant cultivator called Yi Cheng that he met outside the plum garden of Ghost Manor. They had met a long time ago when they were on Supporting Immortals Island. Last time, he intentionally avoided him because he was Niu Yud. This time, he took the initiative to greet him because he was Yu Qianqiu now. Interesting. Yu Qianqiu nodded and smiled at him. "I remember seeing you before." He didn't expose him and started to size up the things he was selling. Yi Cheng bit his lips excitedly. His eyes actually turned slightly red. "Senior, you actually still remembers me. We only met once on Supporting Immortals Island." To Yu Qianqiu, there was nothing worth looking at in the stall. On a piece of gray cloth, there were more than 10 stones of different colors. Some were black, and some were mixed with shiny things. After looking at it for a while, he still couldn't understand what it was. He guessed that it was some kind of ore. The highest price was only 9 superior grade spirit stones. He didn't know where this person dug it out and used it to cheat money. Yu Qianqiu bared his teeth and said, "What's your name?" "Senior Yu, my name is Yi Cheng," Yi Cheng said respectfully. Yu Qianqiu scratched his head and said, "Can I discuss something with you?" Yi Cheng was stunned and immediately asked, "Please speak." "How about I rent this stall with you?" Yu Qianqiu asked. Yi Cheng immediately let out an "ah" and thought that he had heard wrongly. After he reacted, he nodded and said, "Senior can say whatever you want." "Then I won't stand on ceremony." Yu Qianqiu stretched his arm and first collected all the small wooden signs with the price tags on the stall. Then, he stacked the pile of broken stones to one side. After emptying half of the space, he took out pots of fresh flowers from his storage bag. There were a total of 10 pots. The flowers were orchids. The strange thing was that the thin and long leaves were tender and beautiful blood red. There was also a faint smell of blood. There were 7 pure white flowers on top of them. The blood-red stamens clustered around the white petals. The whole thing gave off a pale feeling of blood. These 10 pots of flowers gave off an evil feeling. Then, he took out a wooden board and wrote a bunch of words on the board with a fiery red glow on his finger.
The people at the side could smell the burning wood. After he finished writing, he stuck the board into the ground with a gotcha sound. He looked at Yi Cheng and then at the pile of broken stones. Then, he took out another wooden board and wrote a bunch of words on it. After he finished writing, he stuck the board into the pile of broken stones as well. After that, Yu Qianqiu clapped his hands and pulled out 2 chairs from his storage bag. He placed them behind the stall and sat down with his legs crossed. He raised his hand and gestured for Yi Cheng to sit as well. Yi Cheng did not dare to disobey. He nervously wiped his butt and sat down. The latter was nervous and excited. He did not expect to be on equal footing with Senior Yu. Mo Xiaojun looked at the words on the 2 boards and was speechless. He took a few steps and stood behind the 2 chairs. Yi Cheng wanted to give up his seat but was stopped by Mo Xiaojun. He pointed at Yu Qianqiu and gestured for him to listen to him. Yu Qianqiu was setting up a stall on the street? There was an uproar. The idle crowd walked over quickly to see what he was selling. Chapter 634. In the blink of an eye, the stall was so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Everyone tiptoed to squeeze in. The other stalls on the side suffered, and they were trampled by pairs of feet. However, they were humble, so they didn't dare to say anything. They couldn't continue, so they had to temporarily close their stalls and watch the bustle. When someone saw the 10 pots of orchids, his eyes immediately lit up. He obviously recognized them. However, not many people recognized it, so they all looked at the wooden sign, only to see that it was written, 7-star blood orchid, sold in large quantities, 200 million upper-level spirit stones per plant, honest to the old and young, no bargaining. It's 7-star blood orchid. Sold in large quantities? So many. Someone from Treasure Tower seems to be buying one for 20 million. Everyone looked at the sign inserted next to the stone, which read, rare or priceless, the highest bidder gets it. There were people who had seen these stones in Yi City's stalls before. At that time, the highest price was only 9 top-grade spirit stones. How did it become priceless in the blink of an eye? Those who recognized these ores sighed in their hearts, but they couldn't point it out in front of Yu Qianqiu. However, there were also many people who were tempted by these stones. They could be sold together with a 7-star blood orchid, and they were priceless, so they must be good things. Don't push forward anymore. If you step on the things in the stall, don't blame me for being rude. Yu Qianqiu sat with his legs crossed and warned the crowd coldly. The people in front immediately squeezed back. What a joke. This butcher was a master who killed without batting an eye. He even dared to offend the forces of various countries. What crazy things did he not dare to do? Yi City looked at Yu Qianqiu, and then looked at the onlookers. He was very excited. Senior Yu was Senior Yu. He was so majestic wherever he went. Unfortunately, Fuxian Island couldn't keep such a talent. There were many people watching, but no one bought it at present. Yu Qianqiu silently looked at those who quietly squeezed out of the crowd and left quickly. He was not worried that the things couldn't be sold. The price was so high that ordinary people couldn't afford it. Even if he couldn't sell them, it didn't matter. He didn't think that he could make much money by selling so many blood orchids. What he had now was money. This time, he had obtained a total of 46 billion high-grade spirit stones from Yin Baikong, which was enough to feed the people in Utopia. Moreover, he had a pile of top-grade and divine-grade spirit stones as his trump card, so he did not have to worry about not having enough money to spend. Moreover, he could more or less earn enough pocket money to cover his expenses. He just wanted to see who was buying a lot of 7-star blood orchids. He thought that he knew the function of 7-star blood orchids better than the average person. No matter what, there was no need to buy a lot of 7-star blood orchids. There was something strange about it. In terms of who had a large number of 7-star blood orchids, there was probably no one who had more than him. The spiritual herb garden in Utopia was like growing cabbages. Therefore, he deliberately offered such a high price to test the market. If there was still someone willing to spend a lot of money to buy it, then the buyer's motive was questionable. Who was it? The news that Yu Qianqiu was sharing a house and setting up a stall soon spread in Cornucopia. When Lanfeng dismissed the person who reported the news and turned to ask the other two, setting up a stall? What does Yu Qianqiu want to do? Nongzhu also shook her head in confusion and said, this kid talks all day long and does all kinds of unimaginable things. Who knows what he wants to do? Strange, where did he get so many 7-star blood orchids to sell? Selling a lot of 7-star blood orchids? Lu Yanqing paused and said softly, Spirit Fong Valley also raised one of the 7-star blood orchids. I have been studying it and found that this kind of spiritual herb is very magical. When it is refined with different spiritual herbs, it can produce different miraculous effects. It seems that there is infinite potential to be unearthed. Unfortunately, the cultivation period is too long, and I dare not use it freely. I only pluck a leaf every once in a while to study it, mainly because I am afraid of hurting it. As he spoke, he looked at Nongzhu and said, This thing is very hard to come by. I also want to buy a few from Yu Qianchou, but the price of 200 million per plant is too high. To me, it is a little too high. Nongzhu, can you help me talk to Yu Qianchou and ask him to sell me some at a lower price? You also know that my Spirit Fong Valley is not like other places. We have almost no income and can't get so much money. Just think of it as I owe him a favor, or I can exchange some rare elixirs with him. Wan Lanfeng and Nongzhu looked at each other. Everyone knew that alchemy was the strength of Spirit Fong Valley, but it was hardly involved in trading. Moreover, Spirit Fong Valley's medical skills were the best in the world, but they never profited from it. They had always treated people in the world for free, including those secular mortals. Therefore, compared to other forces, Spirit Fong Valley was really poor. The disciples in the sect almost didn't use spirit stones for cultivation, but took elixirs. But it was also because of this that they won the respect of the world. Cultivators who owed them a favor, if they had the opportunity to get good spirit herbs, would give them to her free of charge. Even those secular mortals knew that Spirit Fong Valley liked all kinds of herbs. So if they occasionally came across some unknown herbs in the deep mountains and wilderness, they would send them to Spirit Fong Valley without any complaints, regardless of whether they were useful or not. In this way, Spirit Fong Valley and everyone formed a relationship of mutual dependence. In addition, Spirit Fong Valley never participated in the battle of the cultivation world, so it was not a threat to everyone. Everyone was happy to live in harmony with it. After all, they might one day need to ask Spirit Fong Valley for help. Fighting and killing, it was inevitable to suffer some incurable injuries. Even the well-known old fox, Yin Baikong, would send a large number of spirit herbs at a fixed time every year for free. Using rare elixirs to exchange with him? Nongzhu murmured with a strange expression. She thought to herself, is there a lack of rare elixirs in that guy's hands? He can even refine those legendary heaven-defying elixirs by himself. I really don't know if the rare elixirs in your hands will catch his eye. What? Is there a problem? Lu Yanqing asked. Nongzhu shook her head and said with a wry smile, I trust you too, so I won't hide it from you. Lu Yanqing, if you exchange elixirs with him, I'm afraid he won't be interested in your elixirs. To be honest, that kid himself is a genius in alchemy. Some of the elixirs he refined can be called heaven-defying. His attainments in this aspect may not be lower than yours. What's more, this guy has a lot of unorthodox ways. He can always get some rare spirit herbs. You should be able to see it from the large number of 7-star blood orchids he set up today. He is also a master in alchemy? Wan Lanfeng was a little surprised. Seeing Nongzhu nodding, he could not help but say, I really didn't see it. At such a young age, his cultivation is already outstanding among his peers, and he is full of wisdom and talent. I didn't expect him to be proficient in alchemy. Given time, it will be amazing. As an experienced person, he knew that it was impossible for a person to be distracted to do too many things. There were specializations. If one was good at one thing, the others must be weaker. It was rare to see someone like him who was so good at everything. When Lanfeng had to admire Bai Chongqun's vision for accepting disciples again, Lu Yanqing was stunned. Thinking of Niu Yud's ability to refine limit-breaking pill and 7 treasures pill, she knew that what Nongzhu said was true. But as for what Nongzhu said, that Yu Qianchou had a lot of unorthodox ways, she somewhat did not believe it. It was estimated that Yu Qianchou could get all kinds of rare spirit herbs because of Bai Chongqun. It should be known that the vast demon domain was like a virgin land that had not been unveiled. How could there be a lack of all kinds of spirit herbs in it? It could be seen from the fact that Yu Qianchou could get so many 7-star blood orchids. Yanqing, why don't I buy 10 for you? Wan Lanfeng said with some apprehension.
He knew that the result of saying this would be rejected. It had always been like this for many years. But it involved such a large number of spirit stones. Who would have the nerve to ask Yu Qianqiu to give it for free? Robbing? That was even worse. Not to mention that Lu Yanqing would not accept it. Just the serious consequences of robbing by Chongqun's disciple was not something that anyone could bear. Sure enough, Lu Yanqing shook her head and said, I appreciate your kindness. I'll talk to him myself. If he doesn't want to, then forget it. I won't force him. Well, let me go find that kid. Nongzhu waved her hand and said, It's just a few 7-star blood orchids. It's not as complicated as you think. If he has more, let him give some for free. Lu Yanqing, you owe him a favor. Don't mention exchanging elixirs for them. In fact, Nongzhu really didn't want to open his mouth. Some time ago, he got a sword from the immortal world from Yu Qianqiu. If he said it was a betrothal gift, he could comfort himself. Later, Zi spent so much money from him. He could also comfort himself by saying that it was right. His daughter was ready to be given to him. It was nothing to spend some money from him. But then he asked him for a batch of limit-breaking pills and 7 treasures pills. Now he had to ask Yu Qianqiu for a few 7-star blood orchids. No matter how thick-skinned Nongzhu was, he felt a little embarrassed. He asked for things from the younger generation, and they were all valuable things. It was a little shameful. Taking advantage of others was not like this. He was not at the point where he could be slaughtered, right? What's more, when Yu Qianqiu left before, he said that he was going to earn back the money his daughter spent, so he set up a stall to sell blood orchids. The disciple of Bai Chongqun, the world's #1 master, was forced to set up a stall to sell things. As a result, when the things were put out, he took a fancy to them and asked them for free. How could he ask for it? Originally, he was very unhappy that Yu Qianqiu and the woman in the Sleeping Spring building were together. He was also full of anger and wanted to find an opportunity to teach this kid a lesson. But he was short of a hand. If he opened his mouth, the guy who only cared about money would lose hundreds of millions in vain. How could he mention the woman in the Sleeping Spring building? It should be known that the kid was not a good person to talk to. At that time, he could shut him up with one sentence. But seeing the two friends in a dilemma, he couldn't bear it, so he had to agree to this matter. But the consequences of agreeing to this matter? He was afraid that some things would have to be turned a blind eye to Yu Qianqiu. Chapter 635. It was impossible for the World Commerce Association to not know about such an uproar. On the God of Wealth Peak, Xikongju reported this matter to his master, who knew that after Yin Baikong heard this, he didn't seem to find it strange at all and only nodded to indicate that he understood. Instead, he was more interested in the process of Hu Yuntian's disturbance at Sleeping Spring Loft, especially when he heard that there was a beauty even more beautiful than Yan Yu. His eyes flickered and he asked a few more questions. Xikongju went down the mountain with doubts in his heart. Could it be that his master already knew about the 7-star blood orchid? 200 million for one stalk. Isn't he afraid of breaking his own teeth? This brat really dares to quote a price, but this is his style. Yin Baikong stared at the foot of the God of Wealth Peak and recalled the scene of Yu Qianqiu trying to hide and sell the 7 treasure pills. Comparing the past and the past, he realized that this fellow was indeed extraordinarily greedy. Yin Baikong gazed into the distance from the foot of the mountain and muttered to himself, to be able to take out so many 7-star blood orchids at once, it seems that this is the benefit that Niu Yud gave him. The immortal world is indeed the immortal world. The rare spirit herbs of the mortal world are probably nothing much over there, otherwise how could they sell so much? After some consideration, he summoned Jing Yuan Kong and gave him 3,007 treasure pills for him to arrange the sale. As for the rest, Yin Baikong prepared to leave it for the World Commerce Association's own use. After the next batch of goods arrived, he would consider the sale according to the situation. After repeating this a few times, he would have enough financial resources and spirit pills stored up. Once Bai Chongqun entered the East Holy Land, without the most terrifying hindrance, the rise of the World Commerce Association would be unstoppable. After the news of Yu Qianqiu setting up a stall spread, the border area of Cornucopia instantly became bustling with people. Yan Xueqi and Man who stood outside the crowd. Because they were worried that someone would secretly attack them, they didn't dare to squeeze in to take a look. On this point, Yan Xueqi was more or less not as bold as Yu Qianqiu.
That fellow could still sit in a pile of enemies with his legs crossed and shout. Who was he afraid of? Yan Juexing and Man whose expressions turned serious when they heard that Yu Qianzhou had set up a stall to sell 7-star blood orchids. They felt that it was too much of a coincidence. Previously, they were still discussing with Bing Qingzi where they could get a large number of blood orchids. Now, Yu Qianzhou began to sell them in large quantities. It couldn't be more coincidental. However, the price was really ridiculously high. 200 million upper-level spirit stones per plant. Man who looked at the people coming and going and said with some worry, "If we wait like this, will someone buy it?" It might be possible if the price was low, but the price of 200 million per plant is too high. Unless there is an urgent need, who would spend such a huge amount of money? Wasn't he selling them in bulk? Even if someone wants to buy it, it's impossible for them to buy it all, Yan Juexing denied. That's true. Man who nodded his head, then slightly sighed and said, although the price is outrageous, but in order for you to master the devil arts as soon as possible and have the ability to protect yourself, I'm afraid that Master will save the money to purchase the restriction-breaking Dan and 7 treasure Dan. Even if it is more expensive, he will still buy some. Yan Juexing was silent and thought, if my demonic technique can reach the great accomplishment stage early, this little money is nothing. But he wouldn't directly say this to Man Hu. But this is also good. At least Master doesn't have to violate the oath to go to the Wu clan in the Chinese cultivation world to find the blood orchids, Man Hu said with emotion. Yan Juexing heard this and suddenly narrowed his eyes. In his mind, he recalled the scenes of meeting Yu Qianzhou and Wu Lixue several times in the Wu clan. He said in a deep voice, I understand, so it is him. What? Man Hu asked with some doubts. Yan Juexing slowly explained, I know who the Wu clan's 7-star blood orchids came from. I should have thought of it earlier, otherwise it wouldn't be so coincidental. Back when Yu Qianzhou was in the Wu clan happened to be auctioning the 7-star blood orchids. Later I found it strange. Why did the Wu clan auction such rare spiritual herbs one after another? I haven't even heard of it in other places. Today, this guy just happened to have a bunch of 7-star blood orchids for sale. Connecting the two matters together, it is very clear. In fact, he had only guessed half of it. When the Wu clan first auctioned the 7-star blood orchids, Yu Qianzhou was just a buyer. However, after he brought the blood orchid back to Utopia, it bred a lot, which was why it was auctioned later on. So that's how it is. Man Hu nodded and said, in that case, this guy must know where there is a large number of blood orchids. It would be good if we can get some information from him. After all, the more blood orchids you have, the better. Spending money to buy them isn't a solution. This guy's price is too high, and if we buy too much, our ice palace won't be able to afford it. Find a chance to meet him alone. I have a way to get it out of him, Yan Juexing said confidently. Man Hu's eyes lit up. Just as he was about to say something, he heard someone laugh and say, so Brother Man and Brother Yan are here too. The two of them turned around and saw it was none other than Hu Yuntian. Looking at his happy face, it seemed that the embarrassing incident at the sleeping spring loft didn't affect him anymore. Hu Yuntian had 4 followers behind him. After the 3 of them greeted each other, Hu Yuntian looked at the crowded place and said with a smile, are the 2 of you here to watch the show? Why don't you go in and take a look? Squeezing with them is beneath my dignity. Man Hu looked at the crowd in disdain and found a good excuse. Haha, that's easy. Hu Yuntian waved at the 4 people behind him, and they immediately opened up a path in front of them. They kept shouting, make way, make way. When the people who were being chased saw that they were from the Cloud Palace, they all made way. Please. Hu Yuntian waved at the 2 of them. The 2 of them looked at each other and didn't stand on ceremony. They followed him in. Yu Qianzhou's stall was set up for half a day. There were many people looking at it, but no one was interested in it. The 7-star blood orchid wasn't sold, but Yi Cheng's pile of broken stones were sold at a high price. They were sold for more than 50,000 high-grade spirit stones. Yi Cheng naturally knew that it was because of Yu Qianzhou, so he wanted to give him the spirit stones. But how could Yu Qianzhou take advantage of this? So he firmly refused. After being stared at for so long, Yu Qianzhou was a little depressed. Just as he was comforting himself to be patient, he suddenly heard someone shouting to open up a path. Turning his head, he saw a few people walking over in an imposing manner. He didn't know Hu Yuntian, so he was stunned when he saw Man Hu and Yan Juexing. When Man Hu saw him, he couldn't help but think of his second brother's death. His expression didn't look good even if he wanted to. Instead, Yan Juexing cupped his hands and smiled. "Brother Yu, I didn't expect to see you here again." Hu Yuntian looked at both sides and asked despite knowing the answer, "So the two of you know each other?" Who didn't know that Yu Qianqiu and Yan Juexing were old enemies in China's cultivation world? Yu Qianqiu stood up and also cupped his hands and smiled. "I was wondering why my eyelids kept twitching today. So it's because an old friend is here. Brother Yan, I really missed you after we parted in China." His words didn't match, and no one knew if he was flattering or mocking. When he stood up, Yi Cheng couldn't sit still and quickly stood up as well. Yan Juexing didn't mind. He had already experienced this guy's eloquence, and he had never taken advantage of him. Sparring with him was just looking for excitement. "This is East Country's Cloud Palace's Hu Yuntian, third young master Hu." Yan Juexing introduced with deep meaning. He emphasized the name Hu Yuntian very clearly. He came to a conclusion today, and he wanted to verify if women were Yu Qianqiu's weakness. Wasn't there a rumor in China's cultivation world that the Temptress of 100 Charms was Yu Qianqiu's mistress? When Yu Qianqiu heard that this person was Hu Yuntian, his expression changed slightly. He glanced over coldly. "You're that Hu Yuntian who snatched people from Sleeping Spring Loft?" Yan Juexing knew it was as he expected, and he smiled without saying a word. Hu Yuntian was stunned, and he felt that something was wrong. Judging from Yan Juexing's tone, he didn't seem to like him, and he didn't know when he had offended Yan Juexing. He paused for a moment and smiled. "It was a moment of recklessness, and I've embarrassed myself in front of Brother Yu." On the other hand, Brother Yu's reputation as the #1 expert below spirit severing stage is something that I've long heard of. As he spoke, he glanced at Yan Juexing, and he realized that he had been tricked. Yu Qianqiu also glanced at Yan Juexing, and then looked around. He resisted the urge to make a move on the spot. He sat down on a chair casually, and said with an expressionless face, "I say, I'm currently doing business, and we'll talk again when I'm free. If you're not buying anything, please get out of the way. Don't hinder my business." Hu Yuntian's expression changed. He was used to being unreasonable, and this Yu Qianqiu made him lose face again and again in public. He almost couldn't hold it in anymore, but he knew that when Lan Feng was currently in the cornucopia, and he had to endure it no matter what. After all, his father wasn't as powerful as when Lan Feng, who knew that his guards would overdo their duty, and they didn't understand their boss's spirit. One of the gods, who was probably the leader, shouted, "How dare you!" Hu Yuntian wanted to stop his men from being rude, but he was too slow. Yu Qianqiu raised his eyebrows, and he didn't say anything else. He flicked his sleeve, and a group of green rays shot out. The guard was shocked. He didn't expect the other party to attack without saying a word. He was a disciple of the Yun Palace. Being caught in the crowd, it was difficult to dodge, and at such a close distance, the only place to dodge was the sky, so he immediately dodged up. Who knew that the other party had already expected it? He had just jumped up half a person's height when a figure fell from the sky, holding a big black saber and slashed at his head. In a flash, a flying sword shot out to meet the enemy. Dang! The flying sword broke into two. The distance was too close, and he couldn't dodge in front, back, left, or right. The flying sword from below came again. The guard was frightened, and he had no choice but to use his protective aura chi to protect his body. However, he seemed to have forgotten what the big black saber in Yu Qianqiu's hand was. It was a fierce thing that had once caused a reign of terror. Puff! Ah! A scream sounded, and everyone watched in horror as the big black saber cut through the protective aura chi like a watermelon, and cut the guard in half. The process was complicated, but it happened in the blink of an eye. No one thought that Yu Qianqiu would dare to make a move in the cornucopia without any warning. Hu Yuntian, Yan Juexing, and Man Hu were also stunned. They didn't expect this guy to be so crazy. It wasn't until Yu Qianqiu killed the guard that the surrounding people reacted, and with a hua sound, they were afraid of being involved, so they all dodged. In such a crowded situation, the scene could be imagined. It was called a person colliding with another. Chapter 636. The figures scattered, but the few of them did not move. In the blink of an eye, the group of people had completely dispersed, retreating at least tens of meters away. Man Hu, Yan Juexing, Hu Yuntian, the remaining 3 guards, Mo Xiaojun and Yi Cheng. The 8 of them looked at the 2 halves of the corpse. The intestines were scattered all over the ground, and the blood-red liquid was still flowing. The few of them still could not believe that this was true. An early-stage crossing tribulation cultivator was killed by Yu Qianchou just like that. Among the 8 of them, Yu Qianchou coldly snorted. He dragged a black saber that was even bigger than a person, and indifferently turned around to clean up the 10 pots of blood orchids on the stall. It seemed that his business could no longer continue. Hu Yuntian suddenly roared, "Yu Qianchou, how dare you kill my Cloud Palace disciple?" He was originally ordered to come and pull Yu Qianchou into the Cloud Palace. He did not expect such a thing to happen. Before he even started to pull people in, they had already become enemies. Yu Qianchou turned around and put his saber on his shoulder. Behind him, tens of cyan flying swords rotated around. He expressionlessly stared at the corpse on the ground and said, "I have killed many people. This is not the first time I have killed a Cloud Palace disciple. Furthermore, you overestimated yourself and dared to come out and shout at me. If you are not courting death, then what are you doing? Do you think I am easy to bully?" Yan Juexing and Man Hu looked at each other. They both had the same thought. This guy is a complete lunatic. If you do not give a satisfactory explanation today, don't even think of leaving here alive. Hu Yuntian angrily said. The 3 guards beside him all flew out with their flying swords. They floated in front of them, waiting for an opportunity. Mo Xiaojun did not say anything and also released his flying sword. Yi Cheng also followed suit. He had seen Senior Yu's style today. That was called clean and neat. He even killed a Cloud Palace disciple without hesitation. He did not expect that he would be able to fight alongside Senior Yu today. This has nothing to do with the 2 of you. Scram. Yu Qianchou turned around and shouted at the 2. The 2 did not dare to disobey and slowly retreated. A satisfactory explanation? What a joke. It was clearly your subordinate who threatened me first, and now you want me to give you a satisfactory explanation? What if you're satisfied but I'm not? Yu Qianchou sneered. How about this? Let's cut the crap. No one will be satisfied just by talking. Why don't you and I fight one-on-one? We'll fight to the death. Whoever dies will be unlucky. What do you think? Wow! The crowd was boiling. The atmosphere was pushed to the climax by Yu Qianchou's words. It was 2F** King direct. Everyone was rubbing their fists. There was going to be a good show to watch. Hu Yuntian was choked by this sentence. His senior brother Chu Dingfang had died at the hands of Yu Qianchou in Dayong Kingdom. In terms of ability, he was slightly inferior to Chu Dingfang. How could he dare to accept the challenge? However, he had already spoken. If he did not accept it, he would not only lose face for himself, but also for his father, Hu Changshou. Cornucopia wasn't small, but it wasn't big either. What happened here immediately spread. Just as Hu Yuntian's expression was uncertain, someone came to help him. Mu Lianqiu arrived quickly with 10 law enforcement guard disciples and landed between Yu Qianchou and Hu Yuntian. In just a short while, a large group of people appeared silently in the air. The people below raised their heads to take a look, and all of them immediately fell silent out of fear. Impressively, the various deity transformation stage lords had arrived. Mu Lianqiu, you came at the right time. Hu Yuntian pointed at Yu Qianchou and said, "He killed my Cloud Palace disciple in public. This is your world commerce's territory. I hope the law enforcement guard of Cornucopia will give justice to my Cloud Palace." Bull *T. Yu Qianchou pointed the blade directly at Hu Yuntian and said, "It was clearly your Cloud Palace who bullied me first, hindered me from doing legal business here, and threatened me. I was forced to take action. The eyes of the masses are clear. Everyone saw this. I strongly request the law enforcement guard of Cornucopia to punish evil and punish these bullies." What a sharp-tongued junior. How dare you speak irresponsibly here? Someone suddenly spoke in the air. His voice was not loud, but every word entered everyone's ears. Everyone looked over. A gray-robed old man slowly floated into the air and stared down indifferently. Hu Yuntian was overjoyed when he saw this. It was none other than his father, one of the top 10 experts, a late-stage soul formation cultivator, Hu Changshou. He immediately led the 3 guards to salute. Yu Qianqiu was not a fool. Without thinking, he knew who it was from their actions. He was about to defend himself, but before he could speak, someone had already spoken. An indistinct voice traveled over. Hu Changshou, you're so awe-inspiring. Is it appropriate to use it on an early-stage tribulation passing junior? You didn't see what happened with your own eyes. How do you know he's speaking irresponsibly? Isn't he being a little overprotective? The soft voice was like stirring up waves, surging layer by layer and reverberating endlessly in cornucopia. On God of Wealth Peak, Yin Baikong wanted to personally attend the scene, but after hearing this voice, he paused and turned back to Xikongju, saying, "It's not convenient for me to show up. You handle it, and keep in touch with me through voice transmission." Xikongju accepted the order and left. Most of the people below didn't know who the speaker was, but from the voice, they knew the speaker was not simple. Otherwise, he would not speak to Hu Changshou like this. Those who knew were slightly shocked. Wen Lanfeng's words were not false. He was indeed supporting Yu Qianqiu. Suddenly, 3 people appeared in the air and stood face to face with Hu Changshou. They were Wen Lanfeng, Lu Yanqing, and Nongzhu. Wen Lanfeng stood in the middle. Hu Changshou's expression changed. He cupped his hands and squeezed out a smile, saying, "Brother Wen, Sister Lu Yanqing is also here, Nongzhu." He glanced at Bing Chengzi in the air not far away. Yin Baikong did not even come. Among the 3, only Lu Yanqing nodded slightly. The other 2 looked down and saw that Yu Qianqiu was carrying a huge black saber. It was as if he was going to attack a city and fight a war. He was truly overbearing. Lu Yanqing glanced at the corpse at his feet and frowned slightly. When Yu Qianqiu saw that he had 3 backers, he immediately winked at Hu Yuntian, wondering if he should seize the opportunity to kill this guy. Hu Yuntian's face was slightly pale, knowing that he would not be able to get away with it today. Mu Lianqiu and the others who were sandwiched between the 2 looked at each other, knowing that this matter was no longer up to them to handle. At this moment, Bing Chengzi flashed to Hu Changshou's side. He knew that it would be inappropriate if he did not come out. Yin Baikong did not come. If he hid at the side and watched Hu Changshou alone, this alliance would become a big joke and he would also lose face. It's normal for there to be some friction between the younger generation. There's no need to muster a large force. Bing Chengzi first said some words to smooth things over, then turned his head and shouted, "Xikongju, how long are you going to wait? This is your World Chamber of Commerce's territory. Don't tell me you want to watch the show instead of coming out to mediate?" A figure flashed over. Xikongju awkwardly bowed to them and said, "Greetings, seniors. May I know what happened?" "Don't talk nonsense." Bing Chengzi pointed down and said, "Cornucopia's law enforcement guards are down there. You can ask them yourself. If this matter is not handled fairly and something happens, you will be responsible for the consequences." Yin Baikong did not want to offend anyone and hid. How could Bing Chengzi let him have his way? He immediately pushed the conflict over. Hu Changshou nodded knowingly. Xikongju smiled bitterly. There was no justice to speak of in this matter. He would offend whoever he made suffer. However, he had no choice. After all, the World Chamber of Commerce was the owner of this place. Hence, he braced himself and cupped his hands at them. "Seniors, please wait a moment. I will go down and take a look first." He went down in a flash and glanced at Yu Qianqiu, who was carrying a big saber. He thought to himself, "Why did you come out to set up a stall? Aren't you looking for trouble?" He then asked Mu Lianqiu in a deep voice, "What exactly is going on?" Mu Lianqiu bowed and said, "I have just arrived and have not figured out the cause of the matter." Even if he knew, he could not say it clearly. Otherwise, not only would he be embarrassed, his master would also be embarrassed. He would definitely punish him when he returned. The best outcome for this matter was to let it go unsettled. Xikongju nodded and looked at the people causing trouble on both sides. He said sternly, "How dare you cause trouble in Cornucopia? Explain the matter clearly. Otherwise, no matter who is behind you, you will be severely punished." It sounded like he was not bending the law for personal gain. When the surrounding ordinary cultivators heard this, they were in awe. The World Chamber of Commerce was indeed the World Chamber of Commerce. They were not afraid of power. However, to those soul formation experts in the air, they were well aware that it would be strange if this matter could be explained clearly.
Ju was clearly trying to smooth things over. By saying such words, he was protecting the World Chamber of Commerce's face and also letting the matter go unsettled. Swish! The big saber in Yu Qianqiu's hand was stabbed into the ground. The green flying sword on his back flashed into his sleeve. He raised his finger and said to Hu Yuntian and the rest, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even Man Hu and Yan Xueqi were counted. He then cupped his hands at Ju and said, Senior Xikong, there is no need to explain this matter. There are 6 of them and only 1 of me. Anyone with a discerning eye can tell who is bullying who. They are clearly taking advantage of their power to bully others. Senior Xikong, you have to uphold justice for me. I was only setting up a small stall here, but their group came to cause trouble. This guy lying on the ground even threatened me, so I had no choice but to kill him. What does it have to do with us? Man Hu and Yan Xueqing's expression changed. This guy was pestering endlessly and actually dragged the 2 of them into this. However, Bing Chengzi and Hu Changshe were both present. Both parties were allies. If they publicly said that they weren't on the same side, what would others think? There would be suspicions of being afraid of trouble. The one who would be the most embarrassed would probably be Bing Chengzi. Yu Qianqiu, don't talk nonsense here. Hu Yuntian said angrily. It was clearly you who spoke rudely first. You were also the one who killed him when there was a disagreement. You still dare to frame us. I spoke rudely first? Yu Qianqiu sneered. It seems like I have always been polite. Why don't you tell me what offensive words I've said? You. Hu Yuntian was at a loss for words. Yu Qianqiu smiled contemptuously. Can't say it right? Let me say it for you. I clearly said that I am currently doing business and we can slowly chat when I have time. If you are not buying anything, then please move aside and don't hinder my business. Very courteous words. Could it be that these words are also called rude words? You guys are bullying others with your power. Chapter 637. At this point, Yu Qianqiu angrily pulled out the big black blade from the ground. He waved the blade twice and pointed it at Hu Yuntian's nose. Senior Xikong, the truth is in front of us. Hurry up and capture these evildoers and punish them severely. Don't let them escape. Looking at his impatient look, it was as if he wanted Xikong Ju's help to capture them. Xikong Ju couldn't help but roll his eyes. What you said is the truth. You want to capture them? In the air, a fatty dressed in blue hugged his belly as he laughed. This person was none other than Pei Fong. Actually, there were many people who wanted to laugh. Nongzhu was one of them. However, she forced herself not to laugh out loud. The corner of Wen Lanfeng's mouth curled into a smile. Hu Yuntian was so angry that he almost became muddle-headed. He immediately roared, "Who said we were going to run? If you're not going to run, then plead guilty obediently and save us the trouble." Yu Qianqiu waved his blade at Xikong Ju and the rest. In the blink of an eye, it became us. It seemed like they were going to carry out the law together. Xikong Ju could tell that Hu Yuntian cultivated under Hu Changshu's protection. Usually, everyone would give in to him. No one dared to talk back to him. He could be unreasonable, but he wasn't good at talking. In the end, he met Yu Qianqiu today. It seemed like he was going to be muddle-headed from anger. If he allowed Yu Qianqiu to continue, Hu Yuntian would definitely plead guilty and submit to the law. This was not the result that Yu Qianqiu wanted. Xikong Ju coughed and said, "Hu Yuntian, are Yu Qianqiu's words true or false?" He was reminding Hu Yuntian to explain himself. It was useless to keep talking to Yu Qianqiu. The matter wasn't even clear. If he talked about pleading guilty, wouldn't he be looking for trouble? Hu Yuntian. Yu Qianqiu pointed with his blade again and quickly snatched the topic. He shouted, "If you have the ability, swear to the heavens that what I just said was false." Hu Yuntian was at a loss for words. He really didn't dare to swear an oath, because what Yu Qianqiu said before was indeed true. However, the tone he used when it happened was completely different from the tone he used when he explained it in front of everyone. Yan Xueqi and Man Hu glanced at each other. This Hu Yuntian might seem smart,
but if it wasn't for his father, he wouldn't be able to achieve anything. Idiot! Hu Changshuo's face darkened, and he immediately scolded. Why do you care what he said? Just talk about yourself. What does it matter if you say black is white? I'm here. What are you afraid of? He just couldn't figure it out. How could a person who usually looked quite shrewd become like this after being angered so casually? After being scolded by his old man, Hu Yuntian suddenly came to his senses. The fury in his eyes gradually calmed down, and he regained his shrewd appearance. He said to Sikong Ju in a clear voice, Senior Sikong, Yu Qianchou is talking nonsense. Not a single word is true. It is a fact that he killed people in cornucopia, everyone saw it. Please punish him severely, Senior. These two completely different reactions were because everyone could tell that he was being guided. But this was exactly what Sikong Ju hoped for. Sikong Ju tilted his head and asked, Yu Qianchou, Hu Yuntian said that everything you said was a lie. What else do you have to say? Yu Qianchou raised his head and looked at Hu Changshuo in the sky, then looked at Hu Yuntian, and revealed a mocking expression of exasperation at Hu Changshuo's failure to meet his expectations. He shook his head and sneered. This person is already shameless to the point of lying with his eyes wide open. What else do I have to say? If I continue talking, it will just be a result of not acknowledging each other. It's simply a waste of saliva. Senior Sikong, why don't you be more direct? Sikong Ju let out an "oh," and his eyes flickered as he asked, How to be more direct? Yu Qianchou stared at Hu Yuntian and sneered, causing Hu Yuntian's hair to stand on end. Suddenly, he saw the blade in his hand pointing at him and said, Hu Yuntian, I'll still say the same thing. There's no meaning in arguing with your glib tongue. Why don't you and I fight one-on-one, and we won't rest until one of us is dead. Whoever dies will be unlucky. How about it? The surrounding crowd went into an uproar again. This madman's killing desire was very strong. He was indeed worthy of the title of butcher. It seemed like he really wanted to slaughter Hu Yuntian. If he didn't have the confidence to slaughter Hu Yuntian, he definitely wouldn't keep mentioning about fighting one-on-one. Although no one said it, they actually hoped that Hu Yuntian would accept the challenge. They just treated it as watching the show. In the crowd, there was a pair of bright eyes. Yan Yu looked at Yu Qianchou with a complicated expression. With the commotion caused, it was impossible for her not to have heard the news. Originally, she didn't want to come, but for some reason, she still came. Furong, Ze, and the rest were currently anxiously pacing around the One Clan's shop. They really wanted to come over and take a look, but before Nongzhu came out, he ordered them not to come out. Hu Yuntian was challenged by him again, and his expression was dark and gloomy, showing signs of going berserk. If he still didn't accept the challenge, how would he still have the face to mingle in the cultivation world? Right at this moment, Hu Changshuo transmitted his voice. Is your face more important or your life more important? Don't let your imagination run wild and push the problem to Sikong Ju. Hu Yuntian took a deep breath and cupped his hands towards Sikong Ju. Senior Sikong, cornucopia is the territory of the World Commerce Guild. What do you think? Sikong Ju decisively rejected. Cornucopia doesn't allow private fights. I think this matter will be investigated one day. Why don't we put it aside for now and deal with it after the matter is investigated? Hee. What if the matter is never investigated clearly? Laughter came from the sky. Pei Feng's fat face shook as he said, In my opinion, Yu Qianchou's idea is not bad. Instead of dragging it on, it's better to fight to the death. Once and for all, there won't be any trouble in the future. Hu Changshuo and Bing Chengzi swept a cold glance over. Pei Feng was obviously up to no good. The latter met their gaze and smiled indifferently. Anyway, no matter who died, he wouldn't lose anything. It seemed that Hu Yuntian was more likely to die. If he could take the opportunity to attack Hu Changshuo, why wouldn't he do it? If Yu Qianchou died, it would be even better if Wen Lanfeng did something else. Yu Qianchou naturally knew that this damn fatty was up to no good by fanning the flames, but he really wanted to kill Hu Yuntian while Wen Lanfeng was here. After making up his mind, he sneered, Hu Yundan, since private fights aren't allowed in cornucopia, we might as well settle this outside. If you're afraid of me, you might as well bring your 3 guards with you. If you're still afraid. Dao Feng pointed at Yan Zhuixing and Man Hu and said, It doesn't matter if the 6 of you come at me together.
I'll definitely keep you company until death. How about it, do you dare? When he was still at the nascent soul stage, he dared to fight with those at the end of the crossing calamity stage. Now that he was at the crossing calamity stage, there was nothing to be afraid of. In addition, after experiencing the beauty of the animal play, he believed that killing Hu Yuntian wouldn't be a problem. The reason why he also involved Yan Xueqi was because he wanted to test his opponent's depth. If possible, he might as well take advantage of Wen Lanfeng's presence to get rid of this trouble in the future. This was simply a naked provocation. 1 against 6, almost forcing Hu Yuntian into a dead end. In the air, Hu Chongshou's eyes narrowed. Yu Qianqiu had gone too far, and he couldn't help but get angry. Bing Qingzi also seemed to be a little tempted. Hu Yuntian and Man Hu, who were at the end of the crossing calamity stage, were not necessarily no match for Yu Qianqiu. Maybe he could take the opportunity to take revenge for his second disciple. Good. Pei Fong cheered. No wonder you're the #1 expert below the soul-forming stage. You're really brave. He didn't expect that Yu Qianqiu would even involve Bing Qingzi's disciple, so he was naturally excited. Lu Yanqing frowned at Yu Qianqiu's belligerent behavior. Wen Lanfeng seemed to be a little worried and asked Nongzhu. Yu Qianqiu is only at the early stage of the crossing calamity stage. Won't he underestimate his opponent? Nongzhu replied with a relaxed face. I don't know what he wants to do. But don't worry, he won't do anything that will cause him to lose. Man Hu took a step forward lightly. He also wanted to take the opportunity to take revenge for his junior brother. Unexpectedly, Yan Xueqi grabbed him and walked to Hu Yuntian's side, saying with a smile. Brother Hu, Senior Pei has already said that Brother Yu is the #1 expert below the soul-forming stage. How can we defeat him so easily? It's not wrong for us to admit defeat to someone who can be praised by Senior Pei. Originally, he wanted to let Yu Qianqiu and Hu Yuntian do it. It had nothing to do with him, so he kept his mouth shut and did not answer. Unexpectedly, Yu Qianqiu also involved him in Man Hu. If Hu Yuntian accepted the challenge, it would be inexcusable for them not to fight. Therefore they came forward to help Hu Yuntian, the fool who was outwardly smart but inwardly stupid. In fact, it was not that Yan Xueqi did not want to fight. In fact, he wanted to try the effect of his demonic power against Yu Qianqiu. The demonic power had been stimulated by Yu Qianqiu's words, and it was running automatically in his body. However, there were too many people watching. The power of the demonic power was extraordinary. Once he fought, he would definitely be exposed. Now that he did not have the ability to protect himself, he had to bear with it. After he got the 7-star blood orchid to improve his cultivation, everything would be easy. Although Hu Yuntian was angry at Yu Qianqiu's arrogance, he was still a little afraid of him. It should be known that the butcher in the cultivation world was famous for killing. Many experts at the final stage of the passing calamity stage had died in his hands. Now that Yan Xueqi gave him a way out, he smiled calmly and said, Brother Yan is right. Since Senior Pei praised him so much, it's not wrong for us to admit defeat. He waved his hand heroically and said, I admit defeat and stop fighting. Yu Qianqiu was startled. He did not expect that they would admit defeat even after he had said so much. Pei Feng was stunned. He wanted to slap himself. If he had known earlier, he would not have interrupted. Hu Chongshou glanced at Yu Qianqiu with a malicious gaze. Then he smiled at Wen Lanfeng and said, Brother Wen, the heroes are here to watch the show. If this matter continues, we as guests will not give face to the host. I think it's better to follow the host's idea and temporarily put this matter aside. We will talk about it after the investigation. What do you think? Although others thought that Yu Qianqiu had to listen to Wen Lanfeng did not think that he could be Yu Qianqiu's master. Just as he was about to use words to evade, he heard Lu Yanqing, who was beside him, say, Isn't it better to solve it peacefully? Why must we fight and kill? Wen Lanfeng was startled. He looked down and said, Yu Qianqiu, since they have admitted defeat, you should also take a step back. Let's talk about this later. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. Without Wen Lanfeng's support, he did not have the ability to kill Hu Chongshou's son in front of him. Moreover, there was Bing Qingzi eyeing him covetously. He glanced at Nongzhu, but Nongzhu also shook her head slightly. Damn it! Relying on others to support you is the most unstable thing. In the end, you still have to rely on yourself. Let's wait and see. With a calm face, Yu Qianqiu put away the big black saber. He turned around and walked to the original stall. He took out pots of 7 star blood orchids and shouted to the crowd, selling 7 star blood orchids in large quantities. 200 million per plant. Those who are willing to buy, come quickly. Chapter 638. Everyone could hear the resentment in his voice. The onlookers looked at each other. It seemed that this guy was unhappy that he didn't kill Hu Changshou's son. Hu Changshou's eyes flashed with killing intent. He turned around and disappeared in the air. Hu Yuntian happily said goodbye to Yan Zhuixing and Man Hu and left as well. The 3 guards went to Yu Qianqiu's stall in fear to clean up their colleague's corpse. This guy was so crazy that he didn't even put Hu Changshou in his eyes. They were really worried that he would do something out of line again. The 3 of them buried their heads in collecting the corpse. They didn't even have the courage to look up at Yu Qianqiu. Si Kongju took a deep look at Yu Qianqiu and waved his hand at Mu Lianqiu and the others. He led the crowd away and continued to maintain the order of the cornucopia. Seeing that the show had come to an end and that there was nothing to see, the rulers in the air all disappeared. When Lan Feng looked at Nongzhu and smiled bitterly, as if saying, "This guy won't bear a grudge against me, right?" The 2 of them disappeared together with Lu Yanqing. Bing Qingzi's pupils shrank when he saw Yu Qianqiu's blood orchid. His eyes flickered and he left. Only Yan Zhuixing and Man Hu didn't leave. Soon, the stalls that were divided by white lines returned to their original appearance. Regardless of whether it was the stall owners or the people lingering there, their gazes were always faintly discernible as they looked at Yu Qianqiu, filled with reverence. She had heard many rumors about Yu Qianqiu, but this was the first time she had seen him act so domineering. He killed a cultivator in the early stage of Tribulation passing just because of a disagreement, and that cultivator was a disciple of the world-famous Cloud Palace. Then, he brazenly challenged 6 disciples of the Cloud Palace and Ice Palace in front of everyone, including 2 experts in the late stage of Tribulation passing. In the end, the disciples of the Cloud Palace and Ice Palace admitted defeat and retreated. In addition, Pei Fong, an expert in the late stage of spirit severing. Now, in everyone's mind, Yu Qianqiu was the #1 expert below the spirit severing stage. Mo Xiaojun stood quietly behind Yu Qianqiu, his attitude becoming more and more respectful. Miao Yud had appointed them as the leader, and he did not disgrace them. Yi Cheng, who was standing at the side, looked at Yu Qianqiu with even more admiration. Perhaps it was because of the sense of identity, he didn't feel that Yu Qianqiu's actions were too arrogant. Instead, he thought that Yu Qianqiu had won glory for the Chinese cultivation world. In fact, there were many disciples from various sects who had snuck in from the Chinese cultivation world. Unfortunately, they didn't have the chance to get close to Yu Qianqiu like Yi Qing did. But it didn't affect their crazy worship of Yu Qianqiu at all. Usually, they didn't dare to raise their heads here. Suddenly seeing such a figure in the cultivation world of Huaxia, they were simply overwhelmed with emotions, unable to calm down, and extremely excited. Was Yu Qianqiu arrogant? Not at all. They couldn't wait for Yu Qianqiu to be 10,000 times more arrogant. It would be best if he could trample all the countries under his feet. After silently admiring him for a while, they left quietly. They wanted to report what had happened here to the Chinese cultivation world as soon as possible. Not long after, Furong, Zi, Enchantress, and Amano came running. After Nongzhu went back, seeing that the situation had calmed down, she allowed them to come out. "Are you all right?" The 3 girls asked almost at the same time. "What can happen to me?" When Yu Qianqiu saw Furong, the haze on his face turned into a smile, and he asked, "What are you doing here? Do you want to help me set up a stall?" "Wah!" Zi stared at Xuelon in the stall and exclaimed, "Selling things is such a fun thing. Why didn't you invite me?" Then she crossed the stall excitedly and pushed Yu Qianqiu away. She stood on the seller's seat and looked around, as if she really hoped that someone would come to buy things from her. She usually spent money to buy things, but this was the first time she tasted selling things. Furong didn't want to be outdone. She stood beside Zi happily, and the 2 of them shared the feeling of being a stall owner. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. These 2 women didn't know how hard it was to earn money, and they thought it was a fun thing. If there was a chance in the future, He would let them play every day. Let's see if they would still be in such a good mood. I also want to have a taste of living off a woman. Enchantress stood beside Yu Qianqiu with a smile, while Amano, Ze, and Emo Xiaojun stood side by side, looking around vigilantly. Yi Cheng glanced at Furong from time to time, trying to hide the shock in his heart. Although Hibiscus rarely showed her face on the supporting immortal island, she had coincidentally seen her once in the myriad fragrance garden. After careful observation, he confirmed that she was the daughter of Wanfen Garden's principal elder, Furong. What he couldn't understand was why Furong and Yu Qianqiu were here together. Senior Yu, this junior still has some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave now. Yi Cheng suddenly bowed respectfully to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu smiled and nodded at him. Furong took a glance and realized that this person looked familiar, but she couldn't recognize him, so she didn't think too much about it. After Yi Cheng got permission, he quickly walked out of the treasure basin. He wanted to think of a way to send this shocking news back to Fuxian Island. Yan Zhuixing squinted his eyes as he sized up Ze, Furong, and Enchantress. His lips curled into a meaningful smile. Yan Zhuixing nodded at Man Hu, and the two of them walked towards Yu Qianqiu's stall. Because of the commotion earlier, the bustling crowd didn't dare to come over, causing the stall to be abnormally quiet. There wasn't even a single person passing by, and everyone took a detour. Just as Ze was feeling depressed, she suddenly saw two people walking over. She immediately said excitedly, "Are you buying? How much do you want to buy?" Before she could finish, she realized it was someone she knew from the saber drawing assembly. "Miss Ze, long time no see." Yan Zhuixing cupped his hands. Yu Qianqiu sneered, "Brother Yan, could it be that you want to wreck my stall again?" When Ze heard that they wanted to wreck her stall, she immediately took out her dark purple bamboo rod and was about to make a move. "Brother Yu, it's meaningless to say that." Yan Zhuixing glanced at the blood orchids on the stall and said with a smile, "I saw that Brother Yu's stall was deserted, so I wanted to invite Brother Yu to visit our Ice Palace's shop when you have time. Perhaps there are people who will purchase a large amount of Brother Yu's 7-star blood orchids." Could it be him? Yu Qianqiu's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't show it on his face. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for the reminder, Brother Yan. I will definitely pay a visit." Hee. Then I won't disturb Brother Yu's business anymore. Goodbye." Yan Zhuixing cupped his hands and left with Man Hu. Yu Qianqiu stared at the two's departing figures with flickering eyes. Suddenly, he was pulled back to reality by the noise around him. He saw many people rushing towards the center of the treasure basin. "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" The World Commerce Association put up a new signboard and started selling the 7 treasure pill that can help break through the bottleneck of cultivation. Then we have to hurry and take a look. Maybe we loose cultivators will have a chance to buy it and make a huge profit. When the news about the 7 treasure pill came from the crowd, Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said, "Young Master Mo, go take a look." Yes. Young Master Mo accepted the order and left. Yu Qianqiu's eyes narrowed into slits as he muttered to himself, "Selling the 7 treasure pill? Yin Baikong, your time of misfortune has come." Ever since he used Niu Yu's identity to sell the last batch of limit-breaking pills to Yin Baikong, he had decided to stop. It wasn't that he didn't want to make more money, but after seeing the various countries and Yin Baikong's secret game, he knew that he wouldn't be able to make a fortune for long. Even though the country's alliance was crushed by Yin Baikong once, none of them were to be trifled with. They definitely wouldn't sit by and watch the World Commerce Association continue like this. To be able to become a lord in the cultivation world, no one was a fool. This was because Yin Baikong's methods of accumulating wealth hadn't reached the point where it hurt everyone's bones. Now wasn't the time to make a move against a colossus like the World Commerce Association. Because some people were still holding a wait-and-see attitude, they were afraid of being attacked by the powerful World Commerce Association. But once Yin Baikong's methods of accumulating wealth hurt everyone's vitality, the various powers wouldn't be able to sit still and would definitely join forces. At first, Yu Qianqiu was curious as to what kind of backing Yin Baikong had to dare to do such a thing. He wasn't a fool. But after thinking about it from his own point of view, he suddenly realized that this old fox was relying on Niu Yud, an immortal from the immortal world. Yin Baikong first boldly threw out several billion, taking the risk of paying first before taking the goods.
Then for every 5,000 limit-breaking pills, he took the initiative to increase the price by 1 billion high-grade spirit stones, constantly expressing goodwill towards Nyo Yud. The reason why he didn't hesitate to cooperate with Nyo Yud to do business was to tie Nyo Yud's interests tightly with his. Once the various powers retaliated, not only would it hurt his interests, it would also hurt Nyo Yud's interests. Yu Qianqiu thought that if he really was Nyo Yud, who had the strength of an immortal from the immortal world, he definitely wouldn't sit by and watch his interests be harmed. At the crucial moment, he would not hesitate to come out and intimidate everyone. After thinking about this, Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but smile bitterly. If he hadn't taken the initiative, Yin Baikong would have really used this opportunity to rise up and become an unshakable overlord of the cultivation world. As he thought about it, he couldn't help but admire Yin Baikong's foresight. Ever since he found out that Nyo Yud was an immortal from the immortal world, he immediately started to make plans. This kind of courage and foresight made others sigh in admiration. As expected, he was someone who could achieve great things. It wasn't by chance that the World Commerce Company could reach its current state. After understanding the implications, Yu Qianqiu knew that this was the end of his fortune, and it wasn't good for him to meddle any further. Thus, he decisively threw out 20,000 limit-breaking pills at once. After making a huge profit, he quickly got rid of Nyo Yud's identity. Then, he immediately used Yu Qianqiu's identity to send out 5,007 treasure pills that buried the World Commerce Company. He wanted to see how Yin Baikong would clean up this mess. The only thing that made Yu Qianqiu regret was that he didn't think so far ahead. He regretted getting himself involved with Nyo Yud. In the future, there might be some small troubles. Demon Domain, Yin Wind Valley. The mountains that stretched for dozens of miles had been sealed off by thick Yin fog for countless years. Raging Yin winds carried Yin phosphorus ghost flames everywhere. Although the environment was harsh, it was a rare cultivation treasure land with abundant Yin qi for the hundreds of thousands of ghost cultivators who lived here. Just as the ghost cultivators were cultivating as usual, a gust of Yin qi that was as thick as ink suddenly erupted violently from the entrance of the 9th netherworld cave. The strong airflow whistled out crazily, and even the nearby rocks that weighed hundreds of kilograms were blown away. In an instant, the dark clouds that covered the sky above the Yin Wind Valley became restless, causing the hundreds of thousands of ghost cultivators to look over. An indescribable feeling of terror spread in the hearts of the ghost cultivators. Just when the Nether Cave had just undergone an unusual change, inside the Ghost King Palace, Yu Ji led the group of ghost generals and arrived one after another. Braving the strong wind, they landed a few hundred meters away from the Nether Cave. All of them were bewildered. Yin qi that was as thick as ink continuously whistled out of the cave along with the strong wind.
Chapter 639. Such a thick Yin energy, for ghost cultivators, was something that they could not wish for. However, such an abnormal change caused the hearts of all the ghost cultivators to be filled with terror. It was a type of terror towards the unknown. Yu Ji pursed her lips, her hair blowing in the strong wind. The group of ghost generals behind her also had bewildered gazes, not knowing what was going to happen. Shun Tian Island, by Chongqun, who was sitting cross-legged in a large room, suddenly opened his eyes and suddenly disappeared from the room. When he reappeared, he was already standing at the edge of the 1,000-mile lake, facing the direction of the Yin Wind Valley, holding a bright moon in one hand. More accurately, it was a mirror that glowed with a bright white light. All of a sudden, the white light retracted back into the mirror. On the surface of the ancient and smooth mirror that was lined with vine patterns, the scene in front of the Nine Nether Cave suddenly appeared. Even the bewildered Yu Ji and the others appeared in the mirror. The mirror floated in front of him. Bai Chongqun frowned, his eyes filled with puzzlement. He clearly did not know what was going on. Inside the Nine Netherworld Cave, after crossing the Netherworld Flame Sea, the majestic underworld gate let out a deep and heart-palpitating sound. The gap of the gate gradually became larger, and the Netherworld Flame Sea that had been burning for who knows how many years began to violently shake. The chaotic airflow caused the various skeletal statues on the huge underworld Iron Mountain to let out all kinds of cries. Men and women, old and young, large and small, the skeletal statues seemed to come to life, crying to someone about the misfortune of their previous life. All kinds of cries gathered in the underground space, echoing endlessly, creating a scene of chaos. If Yu Qianqiu was here, he would definitely be shocked. The underworld gate that had been closed for who knows how many years was actually slowly opening.
When the majestic, thick, and dark underworld gate opened to a meter wide, it stopped moving. Behind the gate, there was a black light constantly rotating. Suddenly, 2 white lights flashed. With 2 xiao-xiao sounds, the 2 white lights turned into 2 figures that stopped in front of the underworld gate. 2 white-robed men that looked exactly the same appeared. Their faces were also snow-white and pale, so pale that it was a bit abnormal, as if they were twin brothers. The 2 of them coldly looked around. After a long time, one of them slowly said, "Everything is normal." Another person nodded and said, "Big brother, why did the Underworld Emperor ask us to patrol the underworld ways of the 72 worlds?" The former shook his head and said, "It was Lady Blackpool's idea." Hearing this, the latter was taken aback and sighed. "Big brother, have you noticed that because the Underworld Emperor doesn't get involved in the affairs of the underworld, Lady Blackpool has been getting involved in more and more things? I'm afraid it's not a good thing." "Shut up if you don't want to get into trouble." The former warned, "This is not something you and I should worry about. Don't say such things in the future." "Got it." The latter shook his head helplessly. The former sized up his surroundings once more and said calmly, "Let's go. Let's go back." The 2 of them had just turned around when they suddenly shuddered at the same time. Their gazes burned as they stared at the netherworld gate. Of the 2 knockers on the gate of the netherworld, only one remained. One of the heaven-devouring beast heads was missing. Not only a knocker, but 2 of its fangs were also missing. No one knew where they went. After the 2 of them stared at it for a while, the latter said in bewilderment, "Look at the saw marks on it. It seems that it was cut off by someone." The former was dumbfounded and speechless for a while. Then he murmured, "Who is so daring to destroy the things on the gate of the netherworld?" The latter scratched his head and said, "Logically speaking, it's impossible. This is not a place that anyone can come to. The people of the underworld can't open the gate of the netherworld from the inside without the token. And the mortals of the outside world can't pass through the netherworld fire sea and come here. Could it be the work of the ghost cultivators in the human world?" The former shook his head and said, "It shouldn't be the ghost cultivators. Once the ghost cultivators come here, their vitality will be burned away by the netherworld fire sea and they can't return to the human world. Otherwise, their souls will be destroyed and they will never be able to reincarnate. The only way for the ghost cultivators to come here is to open the gate of the netherworld and return to the underworld. Once they turn back, they will die. It's not this and it's not that. What is going on? It can't fall down by itself, can it? Even if it fell down, we should still be able to see something on the ground. There are clear saw marks on it. Could it be?" The latter suddenly stopped talking. The former turned his head and asked, "Could it be what?" The latter looked around and said softly, "Big brother, don't you think this is a little strange? Why did Madame Blackpool have to patrol the 72 underworld passages at this time? It just so happened that the gate of the netherworld here was destroyed. Could it be that someone inside was ordered to come out and do it?" The former heard this and frowned deeply. After thinking for a long time, he said in a deep voice, "Don't make wild guesses. We just need to report it truthfully. We don't need to worry about other things. Let's go back." The 2 of them turned into 2 white lights and shot into the gate of the netherworld. They instantly disappeared into the black light that rotated like a disc-shaped flowing cloud. Not long after, the gate of the netherworld let out a dull sound that made people's hearts palpitate again and slowly closed. The moment the door closed, the underground space that had been created by the chaotic images slowly returned to normal. Outside the 9th netherworld cave, the surging strong wind suddenly gradually slowed down, and the ink-like yin chi also slowly withdrew. Very soon, everything returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. Standing on the opposite cliff wall, Yu-ji and the group of ghost generals were looking at each other. None of them knew what was happening in the underworld cave. The group of ghost cultivators waited for a long time, but they didn't see any abnormal reaction. Yu-ji frowned and waved her hand. "We'll talk about it when we get back." Then, the group of ghost cultivators quickly left the place. Beside the 1,000 Miles Lake on Shuntian Island, Bai Chong-chun waved his hand after the scene in the Mirror of Silence returned to normal. He waved his hand and kept the mirror as he looked at the sky with his hands behind his back. No one knew what he was thinking. The vast netherworld formed a world of its own. The ultimate place of birth, aging, sickness, and death was the netherworld.
20 big blood-red words were engraved on a huge black stone tablet. They could be seen clearly from afar. The stone tablet and the ancient words revealed the vicissitudes of time. They were simple and unadorned, yet extraordinary. Anyone who saw it would have the urge to prostrate themselves in worship. Under the base of the stone tablet that looked like a mountain, a gate slowly opened. 2 white lights flashed and the gate slowly closed. The 2 people who appeared in front of the gate were the 2 white-robed men who appeared outside the gate to the netherworld. In front of the gate, there were 2 soldiers in iron armor guarding. They were tall and sturdy, their backs were strong and their waists were strong. Their eyes were wide like copper bells as they stared at the newcomers. The 2 white-robed men each turned to face a soldier and took out a green token the size of a palm. They said, "Lu Ben, Lu Pao, return to the netherworld to report." They took out the token to prove that they were not ghost cultivators from the outside world. The guards here only recognized the token. Without the token, they would be escorted to the endless dark cliff to work as laborers. One of the soldiers shouted in a booming voice, "Since you have the token, you are not allowed to stay. Leave quickly." His loud voice echoed in the surroundings. The 2 white-robed men didn't say anything else. They cupped their fists and turned into 2 white lights as they fled into the distance. The 2 of them had been flying at high speed in the darkness. It was dark everywhere. Only the red flowing lava could be seen on the ground, mixed with the black smoke. On the path separating the ground from the lava, one could see a group of people working with thick iron chains with their upper arms bare. The sun, moon, and stars could never be seen here, and the sky was always shrouded in darkness. This place was vast and boundless. Nobody knew how high the sky was or how wide the earth was. There was only endless darkness. It was because this was the underworld, a world of its own. In the vast depths that ordinary people couldn't know of, there were countless powerful overlords who carved out territories to carve out territories. Even though they had high cultivation states and powerful magic power, they had to submit to one person, the king of the entire underworld. The Emperor of the Underworld. As for the name of the Emperor of the Underworld, very few people knew it. Almost no one knew it. People only knew that he was called the Emperor of the Underworld. It was because the Emperor of the Underworld had existed for too long. All the overlords rose and fell. Only the Emperor of the Underworld existed forever in the underworld. No one could challenge his authority. Even though the Emperor of the Underworld rarely showed his power, and few people knew what he looked like, those who tried to challenge the Emperor of the Underworld were all killed. The Emperor of the Underworld was a figure that most people in the underworld could only see once in their lives. Even if they saw him, no one would know that he was the Emperor of the Underworld. The twin brothers, Lu Ben and Lu Pao, were very lucky. They knew what the Emperor of the Underworld looked like, because they had seen the Emperor of the Underworld, and because they worked in the Underworld Royal Palace. Even though their cultivation states were not high, and they were just small errand boys, they had seen the Emperor of the Underworld. The towering Emperor of the Underworld Mountain. It had been standing there for countless years. Maybe it had been there since the beginning of time. It was the most sacred place in the entire underworld. Because the most honorable and holy Emperor of the Underworld lived in the magnificent Underworld Royal Palace on the peak of the mountain. On the Emperor of the Underworld Mountain, flowing lights were flying everywhere. They were fist-sized fireflies. Even though they looked ferocious, the light balls on their tails were unusually bright. It was these flying insects that illuminated the entire Emperor of the Underworld Mountain. There were 6 mountain peaks on the Emperor of the Underworld Mountain. The Emperor of the Underworld was on the highest mountain peak. The other 5 mountain peaks were in the shape of a pentagram, surrounding and protecting the most sacred Emperor of the Underworld. Of course, there was also a magnificent palace on each of the other 5 mountain peaks. The masters of those palaces were all figures whose status was second only to the Emperor of the Underworld. However, there were differences in status among the 5 masters. The master who lived on the first mountain to the left of the Emperor of the Underworld was the one with the most power and the highest status among the 5 masters, besides the Emperor of the Underworld. For many years, the Emperor of the Underworld rarely showed up and interfered with anything. Most of the affairs were handled by this master. Lu Ben and Lu Pao landed on this mountain peak. To be exact, they landed outside the gate of the palace on the mountain peak. Even though they worked in the Emperor of the Underworld, they didn't dare to trespass this palace. The Dark Palace of Madame Xueqi. Chapter 640. In front of the Grand Palace Gate, there were 2 rows of soldiers standing guard. All of them wore black iron armor. The strangest thing was that everyone wore a black iron mask on their faces. The mask was hideous and terrifying like a demon. The indifferent gaze from the 2 holes made people shudder. It was Lu Ben's first time here, but he knew that these black-armored soldiers were soldiers transferred from the Onyx Army. The Onyx Army was a powerful army that terrified the people of the underworld. They were Madame Blackpool's personal guards. Many large fireflies climbed on the palace gate, illuminating the scene in front of the palace gate clearly. However, it also showed the oppressive atmosphere in front of the palace gate. A heavily armored general stood in the middle of the palace gate. His gaze behind the mask seemed to be real as he sized up the 2. The eldest of the twins, Lu Ben, was obviously not here for the first time. He nodded at his younger brother, Lu Ben. The latter took out a green token and gave it to him.
Lu Ben held the 2 tokens and said respectfully, Lu Ben, report to Madam.
You come in. You stay here and wait.
The general in the middle of the palace gate pointed at the 2 and moved aside to make way. Lu Ben signaled his brother to wait patiently and then walked in with large strides. The inside of the palace was spacious and grand, but it seemed deserted.
There didn't seem to be a single person in sight. In the middle, there was a passageway that led straight to the towering Onyx Palace. Every 10 meters, there was a diamond-shaped stone pillar. The stone pillar was covered with huge fireflies, decorating the entire stone pillar into a lamppost. The path to the majestic Onyx Palace was more than 300 meters long. Although there wasn't a single person in the square, Lu Ben didn't dare to be careless. He looked straight ahead and maintained a steady pace as he walked forward. He knew that this seemingly free space was actually tight on the inside and heavily guarded. It was several times stricter than the Onyx Palace's defenses. Who knew how many people were secretly watching him? The majestic Onyx Palace was brightly lit. Lu Ben bowed and stopped under the base platform that was dozens of meters high. On top of the steps, a female official wearing a male civil official uniform looked down at him. Although she was dressed in a man's uniform, she had a pretty face and was a beauty.
She said coldly, Madam is bathing.
Wait. Then she turned and left.
Yes.
Lu Ben lowered his head and stood there, not daring to move.
In the back hall of the Onyx Nether Palace, there was a place covered by a black veil that was steaming hot.
Behind the gauze curtain was a huge bathing pool made of black jade.
The warm water in the pool carried a faint smell of sulfur.
It flowed into and out of a small ditch. It was a hot spring.
A naked and delicate body was soaking in the water. It was a body that was extremely alluring to men.
Her plump breasts rose high, and her skin was as smooth as cream.
Her figure was moderately plump, and a beautiful face appeared on the surface of the water. Her head was resting on the thigh of the man behind her, and 2 hands were gently massaging her temples.
The body that men couldn't refuse was soaking in the hot spring. 5 handsome and strong men surrounded her, not even a single strand of cloth on them.
Although those alluring bodies were irresistible to men, there was no trace of impulsive desire in the eyes of these 5 men.
Their expressions were cautious. 2 hands were massaging her head, and the remaining 8 hands were carefully massaging various parts of her body. The plump and ravine private parts were not left behind. The 8 hands were moving and massaging every part of her body. Resting on the thigh of the man, the beautiful face looked extremely comfortable. Her eyes were hazy, and her lips were slightly open, letting out a soft moan. The gauze curtain was lifted, and the female official who was outside the hall walked in. Seeing that the woman in the pool was enjoying herself, she lowered her head and waited quietly.
The woman in the pool closed her eyes and said, Fei Feng, what's the matter?
Although her words were normal, her tone was full of arrogance. The female official who was called Fei Feng said respectfully, Madame Lu Ben, who was patrolling the 72 world passages, has returned to report. He is waiting outside the hall. The woman in the pool softly nodded and slightly raised her hand. The 5 massaging men immediately stopped. The 5 men gently carried the naked body out of the hot spring and put her down on the shore. Immediately, someone brought a towel to dry the water droplets on her body. Another person brought a black palace gauze dress and helped her put it on. The black gauze curtain was lifted, and a beautiful woman wearing a black palace gauze dress walked out. Her face was so cold that no expression could be seen on it. She had an extremely noble temperament, which was completely different from her appearance in the hot spring.
Dragging a 3-meter-long skirt, she walked to the main hall and gently sat on the seat of honor. Her phoenix eyes coldly looked outside the hall. This was the famous Madame Xueqi in the netherworld. The female official, Fei Feng, quickly led Lu Ben in. Lu Ben walked to the hall and knelt down. He did not dare to raise his head and reported the results of the inspection in detail. After listening to him expressionlessly, Madame Xueqi raised her hand, and Fei Feng quickly led Lu Ben out. From the beginning to the end, Madame Xueqi didn't say a word to Lu Ben. In the cornucopia, Yu Qianzhou's stall had been open for a whole day. Except for Yan Zhuixing, no one asked about it. Ziyi waited excitedly for a long time, but as she waited, she became listless. She did not have the patience to do this business that had no customers anymore. In the end, she pulled Furong and ran back. After a whole day, Yu Qianzhou knew that there was no point in continuing to set up the stall. With such a high price, it was estimated that no one would buy it anymore. What made him suspicious was that it was Yan Zhuixing and his men who bought a large amount of 7-star blood orchids from the treasure tower. He packed up the stall and returned to the one family's shop. Nongzhu called him up from the window on the top floor. With a dark face, Yu Qianzhou turned a deaf ear and went back to his room. Sometimes when you were unhappy, you needed to show it and let others know that you were unhappy. Otherwise, others would easily make you unhappy again in the future. The 3 people on the top floor looked at each other. When Lan Feng smiled bitterly and said, "It seems that he is still angry. He is giving us a hard time. This guy has a problem. I will go and have a look." Nongzhu swaggered down the stairs. Ziyi and Furong were in the room and continued to fiddle with the things they bought. When Yu Qianzhou came in and looked at the room that had almost become a warehouse, he said to Ziyi with a dark face, "Go back to your room." Ziyi naturally wanted to oppose him, but when she saw that Yu Qianzhou seemed to be really unhappy, he stuck out his bright red tongue at Furong, threw away the things in his hands and quickly left. Furong looked at Yu Qianzhou weakly and said, "Are you unhappy? Did I make you angry?" Yu Qianzhou turned around and bolted the door and window. With a dark face he nodded and said, "Yes, you made me unhappy." Furong immediately became nervous. She put down the things in her hands and whispered, "What did I do wrong? I will definitely change." "Well, you haven't let me touch you for a long time. This is your biggest mistake." Yu Qianzhou walked behind her and suddenly laughed. He put his arms around her waist and slid one of his hands directly into her collar. Furong immediately let out a cry of surprise. The couple rolled on the bed and made love. Nongzhu came down and met Ziyi, who was running away. They talked casually for a while. Ziyi told her that Yu Qianzhou was angry. Nongzhu waved her hand disapprovingly and asked Ziyi to go back first. She still swaggered to the door of Yu Qianzhou's room. She pushed the door, but found it was bolted. When she was about to use her divine sense to have a look, Yu Qianzhou's roar suddenly came from inside. "Get out of my way! Don't ruin my plan!" Then came the messy voice. Nongzhu was stunned and muttered awkwardly, "What bad luck!" She slapped the door heavily and shouted, "When you are done, come up here. I have something to tell you." Then she turned around and went back. After returning upstairs, when Lan Feng saw that he looked strange and asked, "How is it?" "Wait a little longer. He is busy." Nongzhu could only say so. Lan Feng and Lu Yanqing looked at each other and were curious about what Yu Qianzhou was busy with. They quickly released their divine sense to check downstairs. With their cultivation, this distance was really nothing. They were shocked when they saw it. Their divine sense shrank back as if they were escaping. When Lan Feng looked embarrassed and didn't say a word. Lu Yanqing bit her teeth behind the green veil and blushed. Fortunately, the green veil blocked it and others couldn't see it. No matter how high their cultivation was, it was not used to peep at others. Nongzhu looked at the slightly shocked reaction of the two and laughed like a thief. She said, "I can't help it. This guy is used to being shameless. He doesn't care about the occasion. It's not the first time I've met him. You just have to get used to it." They waited for a long time. When Yu Qianzhou came, he looked comfortable in the face of the 3 people who were a little unnatural. He asked as if nothing had happened, "What can I do for you 3 seniors?" Fortunately, Nongzhu was also thick-skinned. Seeing that he didn't care, she was even more unconcerned. She asked, how many 7-star blood orchids do you have? What? Yu Qianqiu asked with a vigilant face. You want my things again? Nongzhu's words blocked Nongzhu's words. These words made the three people a little embarrassed. Yes, it was true that they wanted his things again. As the person involved, Lu Yanqing said, Yu Qianqiu, I want to buy a few 7-star blood orchids to study their medicinal properties, but your price is too high. I can't afford that much money. Can you make it cheaper? She couldn't say it for free. Yu Qianqiu looked at her suspiciously. His eyes flashed and he said, Senior Lu, the person who bought a lot of 7-star blood orchids in Treasure Tower? Nongzhu and Wen Lanfeng also looked at Lu Yanqing when they heard this. The latter immediately shook her head and said, You misunderstood. I didn't buy anything from Treasure Tower. I just thought of it when I saw you buying a lot. I see. Yu Qianqiu thought for a moment and said, When I sell things, I only increase the price. I never do anything like reduce the price. Otherwise, I don't sell at all. As soon as these words came out, Wen Lanfeng's face didn't look good. Nongzhu immediately shouted, Yu Qianqiu, don't go too far. It's already a great honor for the master of Lingfeng Valley to ask for your help. Don't get greedy for money. Chapter 641. Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and said, Why are you in such a hurry? Did I say I want money? Ignoring Nongzhu's astonishment, he asked Lu Yanqing, Senior Lu, how many do you need? They were stunned by him. Wen Lanfeng's eyes were full of praise and he nodded slightly. Lu Yanqing said with some embarrassment, How can I ask for your things for free? You used them to make money. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand generously and said, I didn't say I would give them to you for free. Wen Lanfeng and Nongzhu's faces darkened at the same time. Lu Yanqing was speechless. She felt embarrassed just now. It turned out that it was not for free. She asked in an unnatural tone, What are your conditions? Yu Qianqiu ignored Wen Lanfeng and Nongzhu's murderous eyes and said, Do me a favor. Help me take 2 people to your Lingfeng Valley and temporarily protect their safety. Wen Lanfeng and Nongzhu were slightly stunned. Lu Yanqing asked curiously, Which 2 people? You might as well tell me first. If it's suitable, I can promise you. It's suitable. It's most suitable for them to go to your place because they are 2 women. Yu Qianqiu smiled somewhat helplessly and said, One of them is Yi Kun, who lives here. And the other one, Yan Yu, the proprietress of Sleeping Spring House. Help me take them away. Wen Lanfeng was finally relieved when he heard that it was 2 women. But he asked curiously, Yi Kun is reasonable. What's the relationship between you and Yan Yu? Why do you want to take her away? Yu Qianqiu shook his head and smiled bitterly. Niu Yud has something to do and left. I was entrusted by Niu Yud to protect her temporarily. So that's it. Wen Lanfeng believed it. But Nongzhu and Lu Yanqing, who understood that Yu Qianqiu was Niu Yud, looked at each other and knew what was going on. Okay, I promise you. Lu Yanqing nodded. Thank you. Senior. Yu Qianqiu thanked him first and then frowned. But I'm worried that Yan Yu doesn't want to go. I'll have to trouble you to tell her that it's Niu Yud's idea. If she still doesn't want to go, you can take her away by force. Take her away by force? Lu Yanqing hesitated. I know you may not want to do that. Yu Qianqiu turned to look at Wen Lanfeng and said, I wonder if Senior Wen can help me escort them to Spirit Feng Valley. Nongzhu was speechless. This guy really knows how to pick people. Wen Lanfeng is 100% willing to go to Lingfeng Valley, let alone with such a high-sounding reason. Qianqiu was a bit. You is to say, you is, but he seems he is arranging his planning his funeral. Sure enough, Wen Lanfeng's eyes lit up, but he still found a way out of this embarrassing situation. He said with a smile, It's not impossible for me to help you. The key is how many 7-star blood orchids you are willing to give me. That's not a problem. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and asked Lu Yanqing, Senior, how many do you want? Lu Yanqing asked hesitantly, How about 5? If you can't, I can give you less. She did want 5 stocks, but when she thought that 1 stock was worth 200 million, 5 stocks would be 1 billion high-grade spirit stones. Compared to protecting 2 people, this price was too cheap for her. 10. Yu Qianqiu didn't reply to Lu Yanqing, but he said to Wen Lanfeng, "What do you think about giving 10 7-star blood orchids to Senior Lu?"
Lu Yanqing was a bit angry. It was her business. Why did he always bring Wen Lanfeng into it? Wen Lanfeng glanced at Lu Yanqing and said, "Don't ask me about it. You ask her."
Nongzhu knew what they were thinking and immediately interrupted.
All right. All right. It's settled. Good. Yu Qianqiu readily agreed.
He took out 10 pots of 7-star blood orchids from his storage bag on the spot and placed them on the ground.
Lu Yanqing saw that things were like this, and there was nothing to do. She put away the 10 pots of blood orchids.
After the handover, Yu Qianqiu said to Nongzhu, "You'd better take Furong and Zi back as soon as possible.
It may not be peaceful here recently. Don't worry about me. I have a trump card to deal with it."
Nongzhu laughed for a while and taught him a lesson. "You'd better take care of yourself. This time you made Hu Changshou lose face in front of all the heroes in the world.
He will settle accounts with you sooner or later. Be careful."
Seeing that he was so confident, Yu Qianqiu was silent for a little and then said to the three, "I won't bother you any more.
I have something to do. I have to go to the Ice Palace's shop."
Nongzhu exclaimed, "What are you going to do there? The hatred of the second disciple of the Ice Palace has always been on your head.
Do you want to die?"
"Humph," Yu Qianqiu said arrogantly. "Although his cultivation is high, I'm afraid it's not so easy to kill me."
"Don't worry. He can't kill me." Then he turned around and left. "Don't be so arrogant. Be careful," Nongzhu shouted from behind.
In the main hall of the Dark Nether Palace, the noble and cold Lady Blackpool walked slowly in the hall with her long dress trailing behind her.
Her eyes were flickering for a long time. Suddenly, she waved her sleeve and turned into a ball of black light. She flew out of the palace and directly flew to the highest peak protected by the 5 peaks. On the roof of the ancient, magnificent, sacred, and mysterious Dark Nether Palace, a dozen people suddenly appeared. They stared at the black light in the sky and their expressions changed. They looked at each other and disappeared again without saying a word. The black light seemed to have found the right direction. It flashed toward the back palace of the Dark Nether Palace and directly shot toward a small building surrounded by the deep wood forest. Just as it was about to break through the door of the small building, a flash of silver lightning directly repelled the black light with a bang. The black light appeared and Lady Blackpool staggered back for a dozen steps. She didn't stop until she reached a tree trunk in the deep wood forest. Lady Blackpool frowned and yelled harshly, "Qian Jun, how dare you attack me?" A silver light flashed in front of the building. A middle-aged man wearing silver armor, with long hair flying in the wind and stubble all over his face showed up. He stared at her indifferently and said, "Blackpool, this is not a place for you to behave atrociously. Don't you know where this place is? You can't trespass without permission." Lady Blackpool gritted her teeth and said with resentment in her eyes, "I will go wherever I want. It's not up to you, a servant. Get out of my way. I want to see the Emperor of the Underworld." The middle-aged man called Qian Jun said emotionlessly, "The Emperor of the Underworld is painting and can't be disturbed. I advise you to leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, don't blame me, a servant, for kicking you out of the Dark Nether Palace." "You." Lady Blackpool didn't know what to say. She knew she was no match for Qian Jun. She lifted her dress and knelt down in front of the building, saying, "Blackpool is here to see the Emperor of the Underworld. I have something important to report." After a moment of silence, a nonchalant voice came out from the building. "Qian Jun, let her in." His tone was gentle, making anyone who heard it feel comfortable in their heart. It was filled with a calmness that stood aloof from worldly affairs. "Yes." Qian Jun bowed to the inside of the building. With a flash of silver light, he disappeared. Lady Blackpool stood up and glanced around with resentment in her eyes. She waved her hand to smooth the long tail of her dress. In the blink of an eye, she had become another noble lady. He slowly walked into the small building. The decorations in the building were elegant, without a trace of luxury. Instead, there were many ancient scrolls piled up. If she didn't see it with her own eyes, she wouldn't believe that the Emperor of the Underworld, who was famous in the Underworld, would live here. She might even think that this was the humble residence of a scholar. Lady Blackpool glanced over the scrolls piled up. A hint of disdain flashed in her eyes, but it soon disappeared. She walked up the wooden stairs to the attic.
As soon as she climbed up the attic, she saw the back of a man in a thin white robe.
Looking from the back, he looked like a scholar. He was writing in front of a writing desk.
Blackpool greets the Emperor of the Underworld.
Lady Blackpool knelt down again. The scholar continued writing.
He said without turning his head, "Blackpool, why do you need to see me so urgently?" He looked like a harmless scholar, but no one could imagine that he was the Emperor of the Underworld, the ruler of the Underworld.
Madame Xueqi stood up and complained, "Emperor of the Underworld, why don't you control your subordinates? They even dared to attack me. What will happen to them in the future? They won't even take the Emperor of the Underworld seriously."
The scholar let out a non-committal laugh and said, "I don't want to manage anything anymore.
That's why I've delegated the authority to you guys. If you guys really don't want to, I can consider managing things again. That way, you guys can have peace and quiet." Lady Blackpool's expression changed.
She said with a smile, "The Emperor of the Underworld is happy and angry."
It was Blackpool who didn't know his place and shouldn't have quarreled with Chen Jun.
The Emperor of the Underworld has worked hard for the Underworld for many years. As his subordinates, we should share the burden of the Emperor of the Underworld.
We shouldn't have any complaints.
I'm relieved to hear that." The scholar didn't stop writing. He dipped his brush into the ink and asked, "Why do you need to see me so urgently?"
Here's the thing.
A few days ago, I sent someone to check the underworld passages of the 72 worlds in the human world. They found that the gate to the underworld in one of the worlds was damaged, and a knocker was stolen.
Lady Blackpool said angrily, "I didn't expect someone to be so daring. He even dared to damage the gate to the underworld."
The people in the human world are getting more and more daring.
They obviously don't take the Emperor of the Underworld seriously.
Blackpool asked the Emperor of the Underworld to send someone to punish them.
The scholar unhappily snorted.
The brush in his hand stopped as he coldly said, "Hey Chi, how dare you to ignore my words?
Did you forget my warning? Without my permission, no one from the underworld can intrude the human world. The Emperor of the Underworld is angry. The Emperor of the Underworld is angry."
Lady Blackpool knelt down again with a frightened expression.
She explained, "Blackpool didn't let anyone intrude the human world. He just sent someone to check the passage to the underworld. Blackpool has no selfish motives.
He did it for the sake of the underworld. That's why he sent 2 servants from the underworld royal palace to carry it out. I believe they wouldn't dare to disobey the order of the Emperor of the Underworld. Remember, the human world is the foundation of the underworld. Without my permission, no one is allowed to intrude and disturb the order of the human world." Having said that, the scholar continued writing and said, "It seems that your prestige is getting higher and higher.
You can even command the servants of the underworld royal palace." Chapter 642.
Though he said it casually, every word was sharp and penetrating.
Madame Blackpool was frightened, not knowing if the underworld emperor was just saying it casually or if he meant it. She forced herself to smile embarrassedly. Blackpool knows his own limitations.
Without the underworld emperor's favor, I wouldn't be where I am today.
It's good that you understand.
The scholar raised his hand and said with his back facing her, "You can leave now if you have nothing else to say."
Blackpool hadn't achieved her goal yet, so she wouldn't leave willingly. She gritted her teeth and pulled off the black silk tied around her waist.
She shook her shoulders slightly, and the black gauze on her royal dress slid off her shoulders, exposing her snow-white and plump body to the air. Madame Blackpool stood up slowly and walked out from the pile of black gauze, walking to the back of the scholar. She wrapped her arms around the scholar's waist and said while twisting her body, "Blackpool hasn't served the underworld emperor for a long time."
"Wait a moment. As you wish."
The scholar chuckled. His hand didn't stop moving.
Madame Blackpool uttered a happily.
She tilted her head to look at the painting scroll on the desk that was about to be completed.
Her pupils shrank after a quick glance. A magnificent colorful painting scroll unfolded in front of her eyes. An earth-shattering battle scene was vividly depicted on the paper. The bloody, tragic and exciting battle was depicted with the tip of the scholar's brush. Countless experts from both the immortal realm and the netherworld surrounded one person, and the person who was surrounded in the picture scroll was full of heroic spirit.
He was like a god of slaughter, riding a vigorous red divine dragon into the sky and into the ground, controlling tens of thousands of golden rays as if he was invincible.
Countless people were killed by him, turning into a rain of blood.
In the painting, a man in white armor and a man in a golden robe had a terrifyingly high cultivation state.
They were entangled with the man riding the dragon. When Madame Blackpool saw the man in white armor, her naked body stiffened a bit. She knew 6 of the 12 armored warriors behind the man in white armor.
One of them was the silver-armored warrior who had defeated her in front of the small building. The man in white armor who was fighting shoulder to shoulder with the man in a golden robe was the Underworld Emperor himself. Isn't this the Underworld Emperor?
Madame Blackpool stiffly reached out a white arm and pointed at the white-armored man who was fighting fiercely. The scholar replied with a non-committal,
His brows were solemn, and his brush did not stop moving. His strokes were fine to the point that the slightest detail could be seen, vividly reflecting the intense battle atmosphere in the painting.
After a while, he finally completed a section of the scroll.
He exhaled softly and put the brush in his hand aside.
He examined the painting with a grave expression and said, "For so many years, this scene has been haunting my mind, and I can't get it out of my head. I might as well draw it so that people in the future will know about it. After all, not many people know about it anymore." He seems to be interested now. He looks back at Lady Blackpool's seductive body and raises his hand to touch her plump breasts. But Madame Blackpool seemed to be attracted by the content of the scroll.
She pointed at the 12 armored warriors and asked, "Are these the 12 legendary underworld generals?"
The scholar nodded slightly and said, "That's right. Unfortunately, 6 of my 12 beloved generals died in that battle. Among the remaining 6, Black Armor died in the war. The army of the Dark Underworld that you took over is his former subordinate. Now, only the Silver Armor Warrior and the other 4 are left. Silver Armor Warrior is my personal guard, and he has been guarding the Underworld Royal Palace. The other 4 are the masters of the other 4 palaces on the Underworld Emperor Mountain. They are my brothers who have followed me to conquer the world. So, I have to warn you. Don't ever let me hear you call them slaves again. Otherwise, I don't mind destroying your cultivation and sending you to the endless dark sea to be a laborer." Blackpool shuddered.
No wonder these 5 guys always looked down on her. They were the 12 legendary underworld generals of the underworld.
But so what? The legend would be replaced one day. Blackpool, I know I was wrong.
I didn't expect them to be the 12 underworld generals who follow the Emperor of the Underworld.
I thought the 12 underworld generals had died a long time ago. Madame Blackpool twisted her body in the scholar's arms. She said in a wrong tone, "They know I am your woman, but they still don't treat me nicely. It is obvious that they don't respect you, Underworld Emperor." The scholar caressed her smooth buttocks and laughed. "Ignorance is not a crime. I won't pursue the past. Also, they have followed me for many years. Even if they didn't contribute much, they still worked hard. You are too young to show off your status in front of them. You should endure it. It is only a matter of face. You won't lose anything. I will listen to the Emperor of the Underworld." Lady Blackpool's naked body wriggled again.
She pointed at the man in the golden robe who fought alongside the Emperor of the Underworld and asked, "Who is he?
How can he have such a terrifying cultivation?" "Jean Tai of the Immortal Realm. He is the immortal emperor you speak of. His name is Jean Tai." The scholar smiled. "Immortal Emperor?" Blackpool couldn't help but exclaim.
She pointed at the man riding the dragon and asked, "Who is he?
How come he forced the Emperor of the Underworld and the Immortal Emperor to fight together? And..." She looked at the others who were attacking the man. She didn't finish her sentence because she didn't want to embarrass the Emperor of the Underworld.
The scholar gazed at the man riding the dragon on the scroll with a solemn expression. He said slowly, "He came from a place that was sealed by Jean Tai and me.
I still don't know how he got out of the place. I don't know his name. I have never heard of him in that place. He called himself the Myriad Swords Demonic Monarch, and his cultivation state is very high. What happened next? Where is that sealed place?" Madame Blackpool asked curiously. "Pah!" The scholar slapped her buttocks forcefully with one hand and pinched her chin with the other, saying, "Didn't you say you would serve me? Why do you care so much?" Lady Blackpool was bewildered.
Then she undressed the scholar with a flower-like smile. The two of them fell down on the ground. Amorous feelings immediately overflowed in the small building. Madame Blackpool tried her best to flatter the scholar and tried her best to please him. After a while, the two of them hugged each other. Lady Blackpool leaned on the scholar and complained, "You asked me to maintain the order of the underworld, but the gate to the underworld has been damaged.
If I don't do anything, how will the people think of me?" "What are you trying to say?"
the scholar asked carelessly.
"At least, you should take back the ring that was stolen," Lady Blackpool said. The scholar's eyes turned cold.
He glanced at her and said, "I heard that you are still longing for the blue sky, the green water, the singing birds, the fragrant flowers, the sun, the moon, and the stars in the human world."
"It seems like the rumor is true."
However, this was also human nature. She was a woman after all. Women like the feasting and bustling life and can't stand the endless darkness of the underworld.
"Emperor of the underworld. You misunderstood me. I don't know who is framing me."
Lady Blackpool wiggled her body and said in a spoiled manner, "If we don't do anything and don't pursue this matter, someone might destroy the gate to the underworld in the future."
"It seems like you don't understand what I mean."
The scholar humphed. "I'm warning you, the cycle of the heavenly Tao has its own destiny.
Even immortal Emperor Jean Tai and I can't get rid of this restriction. If you really want to get rid of this restriction, don't even think about it unless you become a god. Otherwise, you will bring a great disaster to yourself and the underworld."
"Become a god?" Lady Blackpool was startled and flattered. "Emperor of the underworld, aren't you the god of the underworld?"
"Who dares to restrict you?"
"If nothing can restrict me, why would I hide in the endless darkness for so many years? There are some things that you won't understand until you reach that level." The scholar stared at the ceiling and sighed. "There is something called the cycle of the heavenly Tao. For example, the demon realm." "Demon realm." Lady Blackpool propped up her naked upper body and asked, "Is it the demonic Tao that was rampant in the ancient times?"
The scholar nodded. "Yes.
You won't understand how arrogant the demon realm was if you haven't experienced it yourself, but I know it clearly. The demon realm almost suppressed the immortal realm and the underworld."
"But what about the retribution?"
"The demon realm was sealed, and the demon children and grandsons who stayed in the other realms were massacred and paid a heavy price." "Is the demon realm the place where you and immortal emperor sealed?"
Lady Blackpool asked.
The scholar didn't say yes or no. He continued, "Back then, Jean Tai and I didn't realize the cycle of the heavenly Tao. Later, because of the appearance of a pearl in the human world, the immortal realm and the underworld fought in the human world. The souls of countless living beings in the human world were destroyed, and they didn't even have the chance to reincarnate. This was the result of retribution. At that time, Jean Tai and I were blinded by greed and didn't realize this." Lady Blackpool's eyes flashed as she carefully asked, "What kind of pearl could tempt you and immortal emperor?" The scholar ignored her and continued to murmur as if he was recalling an unforgettable past. No one expected the retribution to come so fast. At this time, that thousand swords demon monarch came out of nowhere and killed people in the immortal realm and the underworld in the name of enforcing justice on behalf of heaven. Without a choice, Jean Tai and I joined forces again to protect ourselves, but we were still no match for him. We were almost trapped by a grand formation he set up.
Luckily, we escaped quickly.
Luckily, the thousand swords demon monarch was too arrogant and fell into Jean Tai's trap. He was severely wounded and finally fell into our hands."
Lady Blackpool was fascinated by the story.
She didn't think that there was someone that the Emperor of Hell and immortal Emperor couldn't defeat. How powerful was this person? However, after the thousand swords demon monarch fell, the pearl suddenly disappeared without a trace. We couldn't find it no matter how hard we tried. It was as if it was just a dramatic farce, like a dream or a dream. After waking up from the dream, Jean Tai and I looked back at the devastated human world and were shocked. We didn't know how many living beings were killed by this farce.
At this time, the heavenly Tao warned us.
The entire human world was covered in dark clouds. Countless powerful golden thunderbolts struck and chased after Jean Tai and me. Fortunately, the two of us managed to escape and return.
Chapter 643.
After that incident, Jean Tai and I realized that there is an irresistible force maintaining the balance in the world. It is invisible and untouchable. No matter who it is, the demon realm, the immortal realm, the underworld or the human world, once they break the balance they will be severely punished.
The scholar looked solemn. Madame Blackpool felt her hair standing on end when she heard this.
She looked out of the window and smiled unnaturally. Don't worry, Emperor of Netherworld.
It has been a long time. Everything is fine now. Fine. Who knows? Maybe it is the preparation of the final score. Once it explodes, I don't know what the consequences will be.
The scholar sighed. The Great War in the human world almost killed all the living beings in the human world.
It caused such a terrible consequence. It is not something that can be easily forgotten. The demon realm did evil, so Jean Tai and I punished it severely. When Jean Tai and I committed evil deeds, the Myriad Swords demon monarch came to punish us. Fortunately, the two of us managed to escape. Then the golden thunder fell from the sky, but we dodged it again. Madame Blackpool giggled. Isn't it good? It means that Emperor of Netherworld is powerful enough to resist the unknown force. It can't do anything to you. You can't say it like that. I don't want it to happen again and again. I don't want it to happen again. I hope it will be over. If there is a third time, I am afraid that the punishment will be more severe after such a long time. It won't give us any chance to escape. Maybe both the immortal realm and the underworld realm will pay the unforgivable price for their evil deeds in the human world. The scholar suddenly smiled bitterly. I am a bit curious. If there is a final punishment, who will be the one to administer the punishment on behalf of the heaven? Will there really be a person who will administer the punishment on behalf of the heaven? Madame Blackpool asked weakly.
His eyes flickered as he thought about how he had always wanted to replace a certain someone. He faintly suspected that he would be the one to administer punishment on behalf of the heavens. Once this thought appeared, it was like a seed that began to sprout in his mind.
No one can be sure. It is just a hunch.
The scholar pushed her away and stood up naked.
Madame Blackpool quickly got up and helped him put on his clothes. Then, she put on her clothes too.
The scholar looked at her and said, I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that you shouldn't think that the mortals in the human world are easy to bully. There is a pair of eyes in the unseen world that can see everything. Since you've already been born in the netherworld, you're a person of the netherworld. Don't think about the prosperity of the world anymore.
No one can get everything they want. I can't, Kim can't, and you can't either.
After saying this, the scholar walked to the desk, picked up the brush again, dipped it in ink, and continued with the next part of the scroll.
Do you really think that I, Blackpool, am a 3-year-old kid? You can fool me with some nonsense.
The Madam of Blackpool didn't think so, but she replied, Blackpool will remember the Emperor of the Underworld's teachings.
But what about the knocker that was stolen from the Underworld gate?
Are we really going to let the gate to the Underworld break and just stand there like that?
What else can we do?
The scholar continued, the gate of the Netherworld has existed since ancient times. I don't know who built it, but the materials used to forge it are extremely strange.
Even I don't know what they are. It's easy to break them, but difficult to merge them. Once they are separated, it will be difficult to merge them again. It's said that one has to use the 3 true fire to forge it. But the people who know how to use the 3 true fire have disappeared. What else can we do?
Since it's such a precious item, we can't lose it, said the Madam of Blackpool.
Oh, you can tell me what you think, the scholar asked.
She waited for a while, but the scholar didn't respond. She stopped writing and turned around. Just tell me what you want to say.
Please forgive me.
The Madam of Blackpool braced herself and said, We can send someone out to find the lost item. Emperor of the Underworld, please don't misunderstand me. I have no intention of disturbing the order of the human world.
Think about it.
A person who has the ability to break into the gate to the underworld must not be an ordinary mortal. The person who dared to steal the item from the gate to the underworld must have a purpose. Otherwise, who would do such a thing? What if someone uses the lost knocker to forge a treasure that will bring harm to the human world? If we ignore it, what is the difference between that and disturbing the order of the human world? The scholar seemed to change his expression. He asked with furrowed brows, Can we find it?
We can try. If we can't find it, then forget it.
Madam of Blackpool bowed and said, If the Emperor of the Underworld agrees, I will send someone out to investigate in secret. Whether we can find it or not, we won't disturb the order of the human world. The scholar paused for a while and turned around to continue writing, saying, "Just this once. No matter what the result is, there is no second time. If there is a second time, you don't have to serve me anymore. Go to the boundless dark cliff and serve those laborers." This was considered as an agreement. The Madam of Blackpool was delighted. "Blackpool obeys your order. I agree to let you send someone out, but I didn't agree to let you go in person," the scholar said coldly. Madam of Blackpool's joy instantly vanished. She had tried so hard to go to the human world because she had stayed in the dim netherworld for too long. Outsiders couldn't understand how comfortable a beautiful woman like her was living in the human world. A woman's vanity couldn't be satisfied by a high cultivation state. Even if a group of men who looked like pigs were circling around her, looking at her lustfully every day, wishing they could take off her clothes, throw her on the bed, and press her down, those evasive gazes could still satisfy her heart. But in this place, nobody dared to have any improper thoughts about her. They didn't even look at her lustfully, let alone say those vulgar flattering words. Nobody dared to do that because she was the woman of the underworld emperor. But then again, if it weren't for her beauty, the underworld emperor wouldn't have liked her at first sight and given her so many opportunities. Some women were used to those extravagant occasions, so it was hard for them to calm down and live a boring life day after day. One more day would make them restless. Those kinds of occasions were a fatal temptation for them. Even though she had died on such occasions in her previous life, she had finally created a chance to get some fresh air, but it was denied by the scholar's order. Madame Xueqi's heart was filled with irrepressible anger, but she didn't dare to show it. She bowed and said, "As the underworld emperor wishes, Xueqi will leave now." The scholar hummed without turning his head. Xueqi also lost interest in staying. He walked down the small building quietly and turned into a beam of black light as he fled to the door. The brush on the painting stopped and was put aside. The scholar's face showed the imposing manner of a person who had been in a superior position for a long time. This kind of indifferent attitude was like the underworld emperor who had awed the underworld. He called lightly, "Qian-jun." A beam of silver light flashed in from outside the window. A silver-armored man with long hair appeared. He cupped his hands and greeted with an imposing manner, "Underworld Emperor. What has this stupid woman been doing recently?" The Underworld Emperor clasped his hands behind his back and asked. Qian-jun immediately reported, "Recently, she has been in frequent contact with the people of the immortal world. She has also been commanding the army of Dark Underworld to suppress the underworld overlords who are ready to make trouble. In addition, she has recruited some handsome male servants. Other than that, she has been meddling in the affairs of the Underworld Royal Palace, including dispatching people from the Underworld Royal Palace to patrol the underworld ways of the 72 worlds. Should we restrict her? Don't restrict her. Let her do as she pleases. I don't think she dares to overdo it. Otherwise, I will let her know what is worse than death." The Underworld Emperor snorted coldly. Qian-jun walked to his side and glanced at the painting on the desk, saying with furrowed brows, "Emperor of the Underworld, the power of the army of the Dark Underworld has grown very fast. Some of the older members have been purged and replaced by her trusted followers. Moreover, they have been slaughtering in the underworld, which has already made people panic. The mention of the army of Dark Underworld has changed their expressions. Are we going to let her continue to cause trouble? What's wrong with that? Many experts have emerged in the underworld these years. All of them are restless. Let her suppress them and get rid of those troublemakers." As the Underworld Emperor said this, he patted the bulging silver shoulder guard on Qian-jun's shoulder, sighing emotionally. "Only a few of our brothers are left. We have to preserve our strength to deal with possible crises. This kind of small fight is not worth your time. We can't let you guys fail miserably. Since the death of the Black Armor Destroyer, I've had this idea. That's why I found this stupid woman. Let her cause trouble." "Hee. So that's how it is. I thought you were bewitched by her beauty," Qian-jun said with a smile as he touched the painting on the desk. "The other brothers are full of anger, and they even want to kill that woman to wake you up. It seems that I have to inform them in advance." Even though I know, I have to tell them to keep acting like this and keep losing their temper. Don't be courteous to her. Although this woman is stupid, she is not stupid. Otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen her to do this. Don't let her suspect anything, the Underworld Emperor said with a smile while looking outside the window. Life in the underworld is indeed a bit lonely. It's not a bad thing to have such a beautiful woman bewitching me. At least she makes me feel comfortable. Chen Jun, do you think I'm right? Hee hee. Chen Jun laughed heartily. He touched the 12 armored underworld generals on the painting, a hint of nostalgia flashing in his eyes. He took a deep breath and said, Underworld Emperor, do you have any other orders? I'll go find them if there's nothing else. You should have heard what I said to her. The Underworld Emperor's eyes suddenly grew deep as he said, You have experienced what happened in the human world back then. Keep an eye on that stupid woman. Don't let her do anything stupid. If the heavenly punishment comes, none of us will be able to withstand it. I'll forget about the last time she sent someone out without my permission. If she dares do it behind my back again, it's useless to keep her alive. You destroy her cultivation and throw her to the endless dark sea. You don't need to report to me in advance. Yes, Underworld Emperor. Chen Jun cupped his hands and turned into a silvery light, disappearing outside the window. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.